fam will know. But number one, it turns out that on this computer, when I'm back in here, no. Can you hear me now? Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Hi, John. Hi, Chris. Hi, Amber. Hi, Nat. Oh my God. I don't know why it wasn't working. Okay. Anyways, I was making the statement. I don't know if y'all heard this because there is a delay. I was making the statement that thank goodness I figured out the mic issue, which is hilarious. I was like, my unicorns will know. My unicorns will know. But I looked at my computer settings and it turns out that my default microphone is my camera microphone on this computer for some reason, which is ridiculous because the camera, when I don't use this microphone when I'm streaming back here. I use a plug-in microphone. So that should be my default. So I fixed it and I checked. So what's been happening is that like whenever I plug in this second camera, as soon as I turn it on, the sound has been flipping over to the camera sound. I don't know what just happened though. I know Stardust, I swear. Thank you all for your patience. I got my Starbucks. I really needed it. Listen, I hopped out of bed, got myself ready, and then hopped on. I hung out with my badass unicorns. We were workshopping a deck today for tarot test drive, so I was on for like 3 hours, and then I'm like, I need to go get some lunch, and then I really need a coffee. I swear I fixed it. I give up. It's just, this is how we roll now. This is how we roll. And I was literally bragging about it. I was like, I finally figured it out. Not so much. There, I put my phone on silent. Okay, anyways, my fancy Starbucks is a pecan crunch oat latte, and it's delicious. I told myself I always try to get like one pumpkin spice latte, even though they're not my favorite. Like I like them, but they're not my favorite. But this is my favorite, and it does go away at certain seasons. So I'm like, I can't have a pumpkin spice because I really want this. And I missed Stardust's comment about pumpkin spice. I just saw one scroll by and I didn't get a chance to read it. Were you saying you do or don't like pumpkin spice? Yeah. Anyway, I like the smell of it. I'm not a big pumpkin pie person. But it's so delicious. And there's something about the oat milk. I'm not like lactose intolerant. I just really like oat milk in my lattes when they're nutty, specifically when they're nutty flavor, like pecan, brown sugar, cinnamon, any of those flavors. I just feel like they go so good with oat milk specifically. Ooh, the pecan crunch oat milk cortado. Does Starbucks have that? Do they have that in Canada? And then I got a coffee cake, but there was also a line at Starbucks. Like I should have been back in plenty of time, but like there was a line and I'm like, I'm not walking away without my latte. So when I left that pinned message in the other stream saying I was going to be running a few minutes late, I literally was tapping that on my phone from the Starbucks lineup. And I like apple smells too, but I have not been brave enough to try the apple latte because I'm worried about how I would feel about apple and coffee. Coffee for me is such a toasty, like it's a brown flavor. And mixing that with like a bright flavor, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah, pumpkin is actually just the spice used to make pumpkin pie. It does though. So Starbucks's pumpkin pie, it's not even a syrup. It's like a sauce. It's like a sauce. Has pumpkin in it, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, you're saying the apple crisp is amazing. Should I try it sometime? I wonder if I could do like an apple pecan secret drink or something. I might need something nutty just to like bring it all together. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't like pumpkin pie. And I feel like the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte does have a hint of pumpkin in it. Mostly it's the spices, but it does actually, I think, have a little pumpkin in it. I could be wrong though. Apple cinnamon is nice. Yeah, I could see that. That's me too, Stardust. Apple is tea to me. Apple is tea to me. If you haven't seen it yet, I showed my unicorns. Oh, why am I'm holding it to the camera's not on. Hold on. It's fine. I know how to do my job, I swear. Kind of. There. I got my Unicorn's Journey Oracle. Okay, there's a whole video coming about it, so I will not belabor, but my copy of the final printer version of Unicorn's Journey Oracle is in, and I'm very happy about it. So I just had to show. If you have no idea what I'm talking about here, let me just throw out my graphic. These are all the things. Oh, wait. I have to actually add it. To the thing so I can show you. It's not there. See, my Oracle's not on that graphic. I haven't updated one. But it didn't download. Why didn't it download? Why not? I'm gonna grab it. Download, please. There, I'm gonna let that download. Then I can add it and then I can show you because I want to. Oh, see there, now it downloaded. I don't know why it didn't do it the first time. It's not technically on Etsy yet, so don't get excited, but I did update the graphics so that in my little family, you can see the Oracle like this. There she is. That's actually an old picture of it though, so I should update it again. But like, it does the trick. Thank you, Hollow. I appreciate that. The only thing you get at Starbucks is their iced black tea lemonade. Really? I mean, that sounds really... I was thinking blackberry lemonade. That sounds good. Black tea lemonade also sounds good, but different. Oh my God, Stardust. How is it? Guess what we just did? We just did our whole tarot test drive workshop on the Voyager Tarot and Busy Collage and stuff like that. And apparently Stardust ordered it, but wait, did you order it during the stream? How are you getting it so fast? I don't understand. What, did you DoorDash it or something? Like, how does that work? What are Arnold Palmers? What are those? So curious. Let me know. Anyway, welcome to Troubleshooting the Tarot, where I hang out live and answer your tarot and oracle questions and random chit chat, because that's what we do here. I do a lot of this in my membership. My members are used to it. I pop on live and then we just chit chat. We hang out for a little bit. Then we eventually get on topic. That's how it goes. But if you have questions, my streaming platform has a new feature that it should help me spot those. So just make sure you use a question mark somewhere in your post, and I should know it's a question, and then I can star it. We're going to be doing my Badass Unicorns questions first, and then we'll get into public questions. And we'll go from there. So if you have a question, just throw it in anytime, and I will snag them as we go. But let me pull up my Badass Unicorn questions. Okay. Oh, there's actually several. Look at you guys go. Oh, I accidentally downvoted somebody, so I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. It was an accident. I must have meant to heart it. Okay, so I'm going to work Badass Unicorn questions, oldest to newest. Once I get through the Badass Unicorn questions, then I'll start going down the list of questions I collect from the public chat. And we'll go from there. And just as a reminder, I'm pretty down. I don't care if we covered the question before. I have no problem with repeats. I feel like every time we come at it a little differently anyways. And I mean, generally, as long as it's like tarot divination related, I'm happy to give my thoughts. And just keep in mind, I'm just giving my opinions and like what worked for me or like how I approach things. But that doesn't mean it's the only right answer. And everybody in chat, please feel free to chime in with your feedback, thoughts, what works for you related to the questions too, because this is a collective and we all have valuable insight to share. So let me start with Charlotte Mays. Let me just copy and paste that so we can see it. And we'll put it into the chat. I don't know if the whole thing will show up. We'll see. So I've just done tarot with training wheels. Oh, yay. How do I continue to build and grow my tarot practice? And then there's a follow-up question. How can I start to trust the accuracy of my readings? I sometimes feel I can't trust myself because I'm a beginner or intermediate tarot reader. So let's start with your first question. You finished tarot with training wheels and you want to know how to like take it to the next level. There's so many places you can go from that. Let me just grab out, what do I want to grab for today? I think I'll grab my Travel Mons Tarot because I like to have props. But here's something I'll say. I'll say this, and other people feel free to chime in. But in my view, Tarot with Training Wheels was designed to be like foundation base level, build a relationship with each card, understand that you have a keyword associated to each card, and use that to kind of bond with the cards. Because we often think about like bonding with our tarot decks, but we don't think about bonding with the hanged monster, hanged man. We don't think about bonding with the Page of Pentacles. But that's what Tarot with Training Wheels, my book, Unlocking the Tarot, my course, Tarot Bootcamp, all those things are to help you bond with each individual card so that when you pull a card, you don't feel stumped about what it means. That's sort of like, I think, foundational stuff. And so my take on this is once you have a foundational relationship with the meaning of each card, then you get to choose your own adventure from there. So some ideas throw out there. So you're comfortable with the base meaning of each card. Here's some places you could go. You could do a deep dive, like a little side quest into learning the astrological associations of each card. You could do, in which case, if that's where you wanted to go, I could recommend just about anything by T. Susan Chang. I really like the book Tarot and Astrology by Corinne Kenner. That's a really accessible one. You could decide instead that you want to really learn the Cabala and the Cabala associations with the cards. Mark Horn has a great book that does that. There's Tarot and the Cabala by, I forget the author's name, but it's super iconic. And I'm sure there's more entry-level ones as well. You might want to get really familiar with, maybe you want to do a deep dive just on court cards, or maybe, and there's a book by Mary Kay Greer on the courts that I think has been around for quite a while. You might want to learn how to take your practice into a more personal space, in which case you might want to explore Mary Kay Greer's Tarot for Yourself or Dawn Michelle's upcoming book that I totally forgot the title of. Holy shit. Dawn Michelle's book is meant to be like that, like developing a personal practice. I just keep forgetting. I know the book. Anyway. Let me just look up her book title because I totally spaced. Oh my God, bestie failed. The Tarot of You. I knew it was so similar to Tarot of Yourself. I know it's similar in title, but yeah, that's building a personal practice with tarot. Yes, 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card by Mary Kay Greer is also excellent. You might want to go, instead of like adding more intellectual knowledge, you might want to do more practice-based explorations. Tarot Rituals by Antonucci. There you go. Yeah, Nine Worlds Tarot says you can find a group of other readers who are learning and read for each other. Stardust has a tarot group that she goes to hang out with. There's so many places you could go. So a lot of it is going to depend on, I would say, once you're comfortable with foundational meanings, ask yourself what you're most excited to do next. Do you want to get more comfortable reading for others? Do you want to learn more? And depending on that, man, the sky is the limit. And I feel like that's a very open-ended answer to your question, but I hope it gives kind of like a foundational idea of like, you can choose your own adventure. That's the punchline. I still choose my adventure all the time. I dig more into astrology, or I dig more into esoteric stuff, or I dig more into intuitive stuff or practices. I think it's going to be, what do you want to do? And then the second question, kind of follow-up question you asked, is that you feel like you can't trust yourself as a reader. You want to be able to trust the accuracy of your readings. You know, what I'll say is this, that comes literally with time and getting out of your own way. That's probably my number one recommendation for trying to get more comfortable trusting what you're getting from the cards is practice saying the first thing that comes to mind, or saying what feels right in the moment without second guessing whether it's right or not. We cause ourselves so much discomfort as readers by worrying about whether we're doing it right. That is where you will find, if you tune into these troubleshootings, I guarantee you that is where most of our issues sit, is we just worry that we're not doing it right. And when you stop worrying about that and you start trusting that if it works, it's right. If it's effective, it's right. If you're giving an empowering message, it's right. And you start leaning into that, I think that you'll find that the trust comes more naturally. I want to make sure I'm starting these questions as I see them. Thank you all for using question marks. You don't have to do like a question. You can do a question mark emoji. That also works. But for flagging it for me, just as long as you phrase it as a question with a question mark punctuation, it should be good. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Charlotte. The next badass unicorn question I have is from Andy Nicole. What questions do you like asking the cards for your bedtime practice? So let me put that up. Sorry, let me put that up on the screen and do that again here. Andy Nicole, oh, where did it go? Where did it go? Andy Nicole asks, what questions do you like asking the cards for your bedtime practice? So I have a very defined practice and I only ask, I don't really even ask any questions. The first card I pull at night is from my Unicorn Tarot, the one from the 90s, actually not my own deck. Because of the way it's illustrated, it's perfect for this. But I will pull a card to ask how God, the universe, spirit, whatever, has shown up for me that day. And it's very effective as a reflection-based thing to be like, oh, that's where I was being nudged, or that's where I was being supported and I didn't see it. Or that's where I wasn't alone when maybe I felt really like worried or anxious or whatever. And it's been really soothing as a bedtime practice to do that. So I pull one card and I do that. I'm looking over at my bedtime stack right now. And then I shift the rest of it. But the rest of it is pulling cards from decks that will help me reflect. So for a long time, I was using the Unicorn deck, the Mary Magdalene Oracle, and the Mother Mary, and those were great. Let me just show you. Hold on. Let me just show you the Unicorn deck again, y'all, so you know what I'm talking about when I talk about that. I'm bringing you with me. I'm just going to grab my bedtime stack. My current bedtime stack, I'll show you what it looks like and how I'm doing it. Because why not? That's why I have a second camera, so I can show you these things. Did I get the Trash Panda Tarot? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay, let me put up my second camera. Okay. I'm playing right now. You're going to see a video come out where I was playing with these. So just so you know, I filmed that, like, it's not coming up on the channel for like a while, but I filmed it. Okay, so this is my current stack. And I have a journal that I pull out right now. So I'll write this down. So where was Spirit with me today is this deck. So this is my Unicorn Tarot. Again, I kind of don't love the visuals. Like, I don't like the unicorns. Some of them have wings. They're just basically horses with horns. They're not the way I see unicorns necessarily, but that's not the point of this deck. The point of this deck for me, why am my candle's not even lit? Look at this. Look at this. Where's the vibes? I got to fix it. Hello? Light on fire. It's probably not something I should say loudly. Anyway, let me zoom us in. I know I lit the candle and then I'm going to zoom us past it. But what I love about this deck specifically, here's a great example. So here's the Hanged Man. The unicorns are always like side characters in this deck. And so like, here's an example where the unicorns are actually holding up this character who's hanging. So if I pull this card, we did use one up. I got a new candle. I can ask myself, what and who am I surrendering to, and how is that benefiting me? Because it's now the unicorn. So the unicorn represents the way that Spirit showed up for me that day, or the divine showed up for me that day. Here's another example. The Knight of Swords was underneath as whatever, like maybe search for justice or truth I was doing. Here in the Four of Cups, it's like commiserating in a way with me. In the Seven of Rods is standing behind me, helping me to defend myself. Where's Peggy? She's in the living room. Hold on, I'm going to shout. Hey, honey. The internet says hi. She says hi back. So do you see how, like, here the unicorn is the tower? It always shows up in the card, but beside or around the people. And so this is great for just helping me visualize where Spirit was with me. So I always put myself in, like, say, the human in the card, and then I ask myself what this character's doing. There's other decks that hopefully could do that, depending on, like, you just need a deck that has a companion that shows up in all the cards for that for that. Anyways, so I'll ask, where did that show up for me? And I'll reflect on the answer, and then I'll journal a couple of sentences about it. And then I'll pull from some other decks. So right now I'm pulling from the Seasons of the Witch Maven. I like working with these decks as bedtime. And again, I'm not asking a question. I'm just pulling a card. So like maybe I pull Scarecrow. And this just says, remember, you're not alone. Move with confidence as you are guided. And I'm just going to take that as my message. Sorry, I didn't have it in frame. I'll just take that as my message. And then I'll maybe jot some things down about that. And then the new thing, I guess I change my practice all the time. This is what I've been, this isn't a joke. I literally have this. This is the second copy I have that's shuffled. The one that I showed you up there is not shuffled. And what's great about this, I like stuff that has journal prompts. And so for this, I've been pulling a card, and whatever I pull, I'll just show you an example. That was a shuffle fail. This deck shuffles really well. Oh yeah, Everyday Enchantment Tarot would work a little bit like that. Yes, there's a spirit in each card, or if there's like a fairy in each card or something. Okay, so I pulled resilience, coping tools, recovery, and perseverance, right? But if I go to the guidebook for this card, resilience, there's 3 journal prompts. So I've been picking 2 or 3 of these and writing these in my journal and then answering these questions. So which of my strengths can I lean into when I'm recovering from setbacks or struggles? What help is available to me that I may be overlooking? And what else might help me heal from recent challenges? And so I can journal that at that time, which is really lovely. So I've been pulling one of these and picking anywhere from either 2 or 3 of the journal prompts. I give myself permission to not do one if it doesn't feel relevant in the moment. But otherwise, I try to do most of them. And I cap my reading off with something affirmative, my bedtime reading off with something affirmative. So Mother Mary's good for this. I also have the little Alice Oracle that has the meanings on the back. So those little pocket Blue Angel oracles are great for this. But this has been my favorite. The it's Align Heart by Kim. There's something on my box, and I don't know what that is. I probably got like some schmutz on it because like I kicked this thing. Yeah, I did. I totally had some schmutz on it. Probably just like probably a bit of my coffee or something splashed on it. Anyway, so this is great. This is the first edition, but this is great because there's like a little message. I did the best I could with the wisdom and awareness that I had at the time. And it almost always will have me thinking about something, and then I'll journal a couple of lines about this. So that is what my bedtime practice currently looks like. So it's not always, I don't really ask a question other than with this, I'll ask how the universe, spirit, God, the divine, whatever showed up for me that day. And it's just been really nice. It's a nice way to close out the day. It makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel centered. It makes me feel like I've reflected. And then I'm doing a little bit of my personal growth work, and all of those things are beneficial to me personally. So I hope that answered your question. Okay, just making sure I'm not missing other questions. We've got about 7 on the list after I get through Badass Unicorns. Okay, let's see what our next question is. So Threading Fae. Let me pop this up on the screen. Okay. I read from a present standpoint. Got it. So I often struggle to come up with questions to ask and end up just asking the same one or not asking anything. So what are some good questions to ask? And how do you even know what a good question to ask is? Make a list. And you can make it when you watch this video back. So let me zoom back out a little bit. Okay. Let's hope my pen is behaving. It was not behaving earlier. Okay. So let's make a list with the group. Everybody chime in. What's a great present-based question to ask? We did some of this in a previous troubleshooting. You might find a clip video on my channel about it. I think this thing is still trying to drip ink everywhere, and I don't know why. Why are you being so messy, Mr. Pen? Okay, well, whatever. So let's come up with some good questions you can ask that are present-based. I like ones that are personal growth oriented. So I'm more likely to ask a question like, I might think about my relationships. So let's think about some relationship-oriented ones. So I might say, how can I show up better for my wife today? Or you could insert loved ones or my friends or whatever. I might say, what is one thing? I don't know why I wrote relationships here. Okay, what is one thing? I'm just going to riff from my brain. I can do right now to improve my communication. Right? Hi, Grunel. What else? Anybody? I tend to do a lot of personal growth-based stuff, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be, how about this? In what way am I currently underestimating myself? You can turn it into a spread by following it up with the same thing, but with overestimating myself. Yeah, what's happening in the subconscious that relates to today? Yes, love that. I won't be able to keep up. What part of myself needs compassion right now? Oh, that's so good. I'm going to write that down. What part of myself needs compassion right now? You could dialogue with your shadow self. You could dialogue with your inner child. You could ask like where you need to slow down or where you need to put more energy, where you could put your focus. Here's what I would recommend though, and there's some great questions coming up in chat. So if you're watching this back, in a clip video, you won't be able to see this, but if you watch back the original stream, you'll see everybody's questions. I'm going to try to put a bunch of them on the screen actually, so you can see them, even if you watch it in a clip video. So 9 Worlds Tarot was what part of myself needs compassion right now. Paper Storycraft, what's happening in the subconscious that relates to today. Marcella says, what's the best attitude to have today? Love that. Trisha says, what energy should I be open to embracing? Yes. 9 Worlds, where am I resisting growth in my life right now? Yes. What's an object I don't see? I mean, you can ask anything. And so the question is, what are you, here's where I would start. If I was trying to craft this for myself, well, let me put this up too. Sorry. Amber said, I do the 3 C's, connections, communication, and creativity. Usually any questions I need answers for involve one of these 3 and I go from there. That's perfect. So going back to your question, Threading Faye, here's what I would say. If you want to know what questions to ask or what's a good question, your first question to yourself, not for of the tarot cards, but your first question of yourself needs to be, what is important to you right now? What do you want to work on right now? In what ways are you trying to better your life? In what ways do you feel stuck? And then build questions based on that to pull cards on. Yeah, Paper Storycraft. Who needs help or where do I need help today? Oh, that's so good. You could ask questions about like where you could focus, where you should put your energy. So where I think, and this is just personal practice, personal opinion, where I feel like tarot gets a little bit wasted, like its potential gets wasted, is when we're focused too much on like having it help us make decisions, like giving our power away to the cards. Where it really helps and shines, in my opinion, is when you really use it to engage with your soul, like with your spirit, with how you can show up as the best version of yourself or how you can improve your general well-being or your life. And to me, those are the meaningful questions. Now, you might be different. You might want something more practical. You might want to like just think about like use it as a tool to help you focus or use it as a tool to make you more self-aware or whatever. Like there's so many different ways you can use it. But I would say start with asking yourself what you want to get out of your tarot practice and use that to inspire questions, and then make a list for yourself. Heck, make a list, write it down on little individual pieces of paper, put it in a bowl or a jar, and draw a fresh one each day. Or draw one each day and then mix it back in, right? Write it on popsicle sticks and put them in a cup on your desk. And you can draw a stick each day and ask that question. There are so many fun ways to engage. You can keep a question book, like a little tiny field notebook or something where you just write down a question every time you think of it. And you build this list of questions so that whenever you're like, I want to work with my cards today, what question do I want to ask? You can just flip through your little field notebook. There are so many cool ways to build practices that are for you. And I think at the heart of it, that's the point, right? Is to make something that works for you. So love, love, love that. Yeah. Sinchai says, agree. I struggled with learning tarot until I realized I could use it to understand myself. All of a sudden, everything made sense. Yes. Maria Kowick said, I find spreads from guidebooks are a good place to start. There are plenty of good spread books or spread building decks. I have 2 that I would recommend. There's Sasha Graham's 365 tarot spreads. Is fun. It's just fun. You can like do a spread on any subject. It's just fun if you just want to play. And some of them are quite deep. And there's also a tarot spread mass market. Let me just look it up. Let me just look it up. Oh, Peggy's sneezing. Ah, here it is. I found it. I found the one I'm looking for. Oh, she's still sneezing. That's how it goes. That's how Peggy's sneezer works. Let me grab you guys. No. I don't want to do that. Just let me in. Okay, there we go. Tarot spreads deck. I have this one and I really like it. It's just a deck of cards with different spreads on them. And a lot of them are very, I think most, if not, I think all of them actually are personal growth oriented or reading for yourself oriented. So yeah, that might help. So yes, hope that was helpful, Threading Faye. Our next questions are from Twirl. So we have a couple. I don't know that Twirl's here. She wasn't feeling good earlier. So let's just pop these in the chat. Okay. So question from Twirl. Oh, where did it go? There it is. Question from Twirl with tarot. Is a 3-card reading in a 3-card reading, how do you decide which one is the focus card? Is it always the center one? If a major arcana shows up, is it always that, regardless of where it sits, because they're bigger energy? Oh, you are here, Twirl. I probably saw you earlier too. I'm sorry. I'm a squirrel. Okay, so let's start off with 3-card spread. When you ask this question, I'm actually assuming you're asking it as if. No, wait. Let me take it in its face for a second. Let me take it before I complicate it. Let me take it in its face. So let's just pull a quick 3-card. It's like what? Oh, Brune's been saving spreads. Yeah, that's smart. Okay, so let's do a quick 3-card spread. Did we pull this with spread positions? That's question 1 for Twirl. Do you just pull 3 cards and then you're trying to figure out which one's the focus, or do you give them positional meanings? So, for example, some people may default to whenever they pull 3 cards, it's automatically past, present, future. Some people, when they pull 3-card spreads, might automatically default to, like I do, energy, obstacle, advice. Some might default to within, without advice. So if you're just pulling 3 cards with no positional meanings, then I guess my question to you, and this is just something to think about. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but why does there need to be a focus card? What is that doing for you? Just consider that for a second, and I'll tell you how I read a 3-card spread. So I read when I don't have a spread in mind. Sometimes a focus might kind of come forward based on intuitively, but let me just tell you what I see here. We have the Hermit, the 5 of Cups, and the 6 of Pentacles. So the way I'm going to interpret this is almost like I'm reading a story, which sounds like it's what you said. You said you're trying to build a story. Well, for me, if I'm trying to build a story, then any focus or any card that has more weight is just going to happen naturally. I'm not trying to sit here and go, which one's the focus? I just go, okay, the Hermit card indicates that there's a need for or a desire to turn inward and to maybe focus on leaning into the wisdom you've gained over time, leaning into lighting your own path, maybe leading instead of being led, at least internally, maybe taking some time to contemplate, or even pulling away a little bit and having some quality alone time. The 5 of Cups is indicating that maybe there's some stuff we need to process. Maybe we're kind of clinging to a past experience that's wounding or hurting us. Maybe the 5 of Cups indicates we've had a loss, or we're dealing with some sort of an emotional upset, and we're kind of stuck there. So that's giving context to the Hermit and telling me that probably the reason we need to lean on our own intuition or maybe take a step back and like get some wisdom in a situation is because we still need to process this. And then the Six of Pentacles is telling me that sometimes it's okay to admit that we don't have all the tools we need to get to where we need to get to. So maybe we need to ask for a little help. Maybe be willing to accept advice or ask for advice. The Pentacles, we tend to think in terms of money, right? But in context with where this story is going, to me, this is about reciprocity, give and take. How can I allow myself to receive something that's going to help me process whatever I need to process? Maybe I need to go into a book or watch some YouTube videos from somebody in the mental health professional field or whatever that I trust and I enjoy listening to their content. I find it helps. So I usually begin left to right the same way I would read a book, typically. Now, if doing that, it so happens that the Hermit jumps out at me as having the bigger emphasis because it's major arcana. That's an intuitive decision I can make in the moment, but I don't have to make that decision. What if what's really standing out to me is the Five of Cups, because I know that that's really why all this other stuff is coming up, because that just feels intuitively right. You know, if we're processing something emotionally, then obviously we're going to need to do some work around that. So what's the work? Well, the Hermit and the Six of Pentacles tells me what the work is. Kind of the Five of Cups became the focal point, right? So where you begin and what's the heart of the matter is up to you. Now, if you find this kind of open format challenging and it kind of leaves you feeling like you're kind of going off floppy hands and a little bit lost, then perhaps it is better to pre-decide what's going to be the focus. As we discussed in our last Troubleshooting the Tarot, what you decide as you begin to shuffle is what matters. If you decide that you're going to pull 3 cards and they're going to be energy obstacle advice, then that's what you're going to get. If you decide that the central card is going to be the main focal point of your reading, then that's what you're going to get. So you kind of you make the rules, but then you stand by those rules when you lay the cards. So if you decide, hey, if a court card comes up upright, it's me, and if it comes up upside down, it's somebody else. Some people do that. Then stick by that. Like whatever rule you set for yourself, be consistent when you pull your cards, and you'll get the benefit of that in my view. But as far as like, is it always a major? Is it always the center? For me, I would say no. I read organically and I read intuitively, typically from left to right. And then I just see what happens. Now, that is different though. And I'm going to just demonstrate the difference. That is different than when I do the oracle card in the middle and the tarot cards to either side situation. So here I have the Oracle and Tarot of Oneness minis. So I'm going to just demonstrate with this. So we see this a lot on TarotTube. I totally blame Dawn Michelle. This is not the right way to work with Oracle card pairings. This is just something that I find useful that I saw Dawn do, and I think that's where a lot of us ended up getting it from. But regardless, I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's just like if it works, like cool, do it, right? But if you're going to do the thing where you lay an Oracle card in the center and then put tarot to either side, which is, again, a common way to do pairings, and I like doing it, then we're deciding up front. I'm deciding, I should say the way that I read it, I'm sort of deciding that Oracle card is going to be the focal point. So I've decided, okay, when I lay an Oracle card in the center, that's going to be the energy of my reading. That's going to be the focal point. So what do I have? Venture beyond the familiar. That's my Oracle card. So that's the focal point of my reading. Okay, that's the message. That's what I'm working with. Now the tarot is going to add context or give me advice on how it is I'm supposed to do that. Like how I'm supposed to do it, why I'm doing it, or more context to that central card. So I already got my message essentially. The cards are telling me it's time for me to venture beyond what is familiar. Okay. So now I'm going to pull 2 cards, and based on those 2 cards, I'll decide, are these adding context? Are they giving me a reason? So I have the Sun and I have the 10 of Wands. Okay, well, this makes sense. The Sun for me is a card of authenticity and freedom and being able to have joy and let our hair down because we feel safe to do that. It's a playful, lighthearted card that has a lot of buoyancy to it. And so I have that on one side, and I have the 10 of Wands where there's a boulder being dragged uphill on the other card. So what that tells me is if I want to venture beyond the familiar, if I want to get to new horizons, if I want to open myself up, then maybe I've got to carry a little less so that I can bring some of the success and buoyancy in with me. So these have provided context and a bit of a method. How am I going to get there? How am I going to venture beyond the unfamiliar? I got to stop yanking boulders uphill, figure out how to stop doing so much of this so I can do more of this. And that's going to help me get into the unfamiliar. Does that track with, I guess the point of what you were getting at, Twirl? So in this case, yes, I have absolutely chosen ahead of time that my Oracle card is going to then be the focal point for my reading. So it just depends on how you read, but I would say decide before you pull your cards and then just stick with that as you go ahead and go through it. And it'll just start to naturally make sense, I think. So hopefully that was helpful. Lots of great feedback in the comments. Yep. Love this. So Melissa says, I like the center card as focus and the card on each side is the energy surrounding it. Yeah. Yes, Marcella was pointing out some visual similarities between the Hermit and the Six of Pentacles. I have a section actually in Unlocking the Tarot. If you have the book and you haven't played with this section yet, oh, I don't want to knock things down. Okay. This might be helpful. It's sort of like a step-by-step process for building into organic readings. Here it is. Okay. So I call it's the card combinations chapter. It's chapter 8. If you have the physical copy, this is the first printing, but page 251 is where I get into this. And so I talk about the 5-step method for reading tarot card combos. And what I essentially do in this is, the best way to describe this in short is that I start with 1 step. And if I feel so called, I might add step 2, I might add step 3. So I get into those steps, but this is about the different things you can do. So starting with just, what do these cards mean in combination? And I talk about how to do that by doing the math. And then how to play order into it, how that plays into it, how you can pull elements into it, how you can then pull numbers into it, how to factor in majors, how to factor in directionality. And this is not a hard and fast rule. It's just meant to give you some ways to work with cards organically without needing fixed spread positions for everything, right? Okay. So let's take a look, because I know you had a couple other questions here. How does one read a pair of king and queens of the same court? I feel like as a pair, they should also have a deeper connection than just their personality range. Hold on, let me put this on. Let me do that again. I'm so sorry. It makes it easier in the clip videos if I actually read it while it's on the screen, because then I can find it later. Okay, so forgive me while I repeat myself. Twirl with Tarot asks, how does one read a pair of king and queens of the same court? I feel like as a pair, they should also have a deeper connection than just their personality range. How do I read the pair of the same court? So let's say you've done a big spread and you have both, like say the queen. Let me just see the first ones I come to and we'll go with that. Let's just play it through. So let's say we have a 5-card spread. Am I going to find any kings or queens here? Okay, here we go. Here's the Queen of Swords. So now we're finding the King of Swords. I might do this with even king and queens of different suits as well sometimes, depending. I mean, my first answer is always going to be, if it feels right, then do it kind of thing, which I realize is not always helpful. But okay, so let's give this a shuffle. We're going to pull out just 3 random cards from here. Okay. Now, I've got 5 cards total. I'm going to just kind of mix these up in my hands. Okay, let's lay them all out. So there's our king. Oh, there's our queen. They came out next to each other. There's our 8 of Pentacles, our 7 of Pentacles, and our, oh, and we also got the king. Oh, wait, no, that's the King of Pentacles. Oh, that's funny. We ended up with another court card. That's hilarious. I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so we have our Queen of Swords here and our King of Swords here. So is that going to factor in? Let me zoom out just a little bit more again. Is it going to factor in for me? I would say sometimes. So especially if I'm reading a Rider-Waite-Smith clone deck. Why is this crooked? Y'all, I am too neurotic for this. Okay, there we go. I am, yes, I will grab your question, Luke. You are on my list, Luke. And hello. Okay. So you did a 3-card and got a king and queen on either side. Okay, what did that organically feel like to you, Twirl? So let's play that out. Actually, let's just change this here. Let's just do this. Okay, here we go. So we have the 8 of Pentacles between the Queen and King of Swords. So if this feels like a pair to you, then is this what connects them, or what is blocking them, or what is between them, or what is in their way? Are you reading this as a relationship reading? Basically, it's going to depend on what your question was at the time and then where you want to take it. So for example, let's say I was doing a daily check-in. Let's say I was doing a daily check-in. I could see myself going, okay, these are both analytical energies. The Queen of Swords is the truth teller to me, and somebody who takes our blinders off. The King of Swords is somebody who I see as like a strategist and somebody who's analytical in their thinking and always looks at the big picture, kind of zooms out. And in between them is the Eight of Pentacles, which for me has a lot of perfectionist-y kind of energies. We're repeating the work until we can get it quite right. We're mastering a skill. So between them, I guess my question would be, if I'm reading for myself, I would go, what do I relate to? You were giving advice, or you were asking the cards for advice? When you say giving advice, what do you mean? So to kind of play out this thought experiment, to play this out, if I was doing this for myself, I'd go, "Ooh, interesting. There's some perfectionism, and I need to take my blinders off with relation to that." And the King of Swords is reminding me that when you're too close to the work, you can't quite see the good in it. And so I'm too close to my work, and I'm not realizing that I'm kind of getting in my own way. That might be how I might read that for myself. I'm using both of their energies, but I'm not necessarily doing the thing where I'm like treating them like a couple, if that makes sense. I'm just seeing how they both offer different perspectives and how they play into the central card. Now, what you could do potentially is let's say I pulled out the Page of Cups, who I'm not going to fish for it, but let's just like pretend that I have the Page of Cups here. And that's a card that I tend to personify as myself. It's like a significator for me. And on the other side, I have the King of Swords. Now, all of a sudden, let's say this is Queen of Cups. I'm trying to play this out with Queen and King. So Queen of Cups, and I'm seeing that kind of as me, and King of Wands, and I'm seeing that as maybe Peggy. Now I'm going to read this different. I'm going to see those two as a couple, and I'm going to think about how the central card plays into that. But, okay, so Twirl says, I felt like I needed an additional layer to what they represented as a pair. You don't need anything you don't want. I know that must be infuriating to hear sometimes, but let me be so for real. If it jumps out at you as relevant in the moment, then it's probably relevant. Oh, thank you, Luke. So yeah, if it jumps out at you and it feels relevant, it's probably relevant. If it does not feel relevant, don't complicate your readings unnecessarily. Just because you see something and you realize they might go together, it doesn't mean they must go together and that you must dig into that layer. You don't need to. If it feels relevant, it's probably relevant. If you're just looking at it going, oh, I bet there's like a tarot rule about that, then you're getting in your own way. So the question is, are you listening to yourself or? So let's see what people in the chat are saying. So Amber says, I also see the courts as stages of evolution of mastery and can see that as progress of attaining a lesson. Yes. So if you see, like, for example, if I see a page and then a queen or a knight and then a king, you can see that progression for sure. And you can do the same thing with queen to king energy. You can see that evolution. I do the same thing with that when I see numbers increasing in a reading. Like if I see a 3, a 5, and a 7, we're going up. If I see a 10, then a 6, then a 2, we're going down. Some readings that feels relevant. Some readings I don't even notice it. So that is part of our intuition though, right? And Grun Ul said, I would lean into the emotions of the center card. Yeah. I think that's also valid. The thing is, I don't think there's a flat, it applies in every scenario answer to the question. I think it's what actually feels relevant in the moment that you're reading. And so here's what I would say to you is if you see something and you're not quite sure how to interpret it, ask yourself, does this feel relevant? If it feels relevant, then it's worth exploring. You know what I mean? And this comes back to self-trust in readings. How do you recognize, hey, this feels like something I should dig into or I want to dig into? And don't forget, you can always make a rule for yourself. This is no different than any other divination system. You can make a rule for yourself that says every single time I get a matched pair in a reading, I'm going to look at that matched pair as a combined energy and add that as a layer. Or every single time I see a matched pair in a reading, I'm going to look for whatever is between them as a blockage or as a enhancement. You know what I mean? Like you get to decide. It's no different than people who choose to read upright or reversals. So much of what we do in tarot reading lets us customize our approach. But yeah, I don't know how helpful that was. I hope that was helpful. And thank you everybody for chiming in as well. Okay, and then one more question from Twirl, and then we're going to go on to the public questions. So how do you create a spread for reading on the fly? Oh, you're like, please feel, I got to repeat myself again. I'm sorry, y'all. I will get a rhythm going, I swear. And I know I can bounce it around in the list and thank you, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Okay. Okay. So how do you create a spread for a reading on the fly? I guess, okay. I'm going to ask follow-up questions again. This is how I roll. So when you say you're doing a reading on the fly, is it because you prefer to read always with spreads and you want to play with your cards, but you just don't know what to ask? Because that's kind of like what we covered with the daily draw kind of question. Or is it that you want to be able to, you have a specific question you want to ask and you want to be able to craft a spread around that question? Like, man, I really want to pull my cards on this toxic situation at my job, but I don't have a spread at hand. And you're asking, like, how do I come up with a spread for that situation? So if you can clarify, is this like, I just want to play with my cards, but I want like a spread to use? Or is this, I have a specific question, I'm out and about, I have my cards, and I just want to come up with a quick spread to answer that question? And I have a couple thoughts, but I'd be curious to get more clarity on what you mean. And then, as always, you guys, if you are watching right now and have a question, throw it in the chat because we're going to be getting to our list next. I have 8 questions on the list after twirl right now. So feel free to add to the list. I'll be here. I'll be on live for a bit. Yeah, when I read for others, I tend to use spread, but I also want to be able to go intuitive. So like, okay, so this is like a situation where maybe somebody else has asked you a question. So you're out and about and somebody's like, hey, I want a tarot reading. And you want to be able to create a spread on the fly. I would say don't do that. Okay, let me clarify. What I mean. Learn one small spread that can answer any question and learn one big spread that can answer any question. I'll tell you mine. You want to not be tied by the spread depending on their question. You want to be able, so you want to be able to create one. Okay, so I'll give you both pieces of advice then. I have a memorized small spread and a memorized big spread I can use for anything at any time. I know them like the back of my hand. I can use them anywhere, anytime. My small spread is 3 cards, energy, obstacle, advice. I can read an answer to any question with that 3-card spread. And my second one, my big one, is a Celtic cross. My Celtic cross, the version that I learned, or whatever, it tweaked, learned over the years. My Celtic cross, energy, obstacle, advice. Those are my go-tos. And yeah, absolutely, Stardust. Just ask the question and I'll start it. So that's one option. Then you always have a spread to go to. Now, if you want to create a spread on the fly, let's say somebody's like, I want a relationship reading. Now, with practice, you can just come up with something. Truly, you just have to practice. But let's say somebody asks a question about the relationship and you want to spread on the fly. One thing you could try, let's just play. I don't know if this is going to be effective or not, but let's just play. One thing you could try is pulling 3 cards for 3 positions. You think you learned everything I taught? That's amazing. Okay, so your sister wants a relationship reading. So you're going to shuffle your cards for 3-card positions. Okay, she just wants a reading on her relationship generally, right? Okay, got your question, Curse. Thank you. I've got it on my list. Okay, so 3 cards. Here we go. We've got the 5 of Pentacles, the Moon, and the 10 of Cups. All right, y'all. These are our positions. What do they mean? Okay. 5 of Pentacles, I'm going to say, is maybe feeling like an outsider. Like, so there's something not being communicated. Somebody kind of feels like they're on their own about something. They feel left out of something. The Moon is often, to me, is about something that is hidden, something unconscious, or this could be something wild, for example. And the 10 of Cups is something joyful, blissful, amazing, going really well. Okay, I can make a spread on that. So for my 5 of Pentacles, the prompt question now is, where in your relationship do you and your partner feel isolated from each other? Okay, I just made a question based on what I know the meaning of this card is. Okay, so let's pull a card for that. This is just the position. It's fine. Yes, I have 3 less cards to work with. I'll live. It's fine. I promise. So, or you can just write those down and then shuffle them back in if that feels better to you. Okay, so I'm going to leave them out though. So my first question is, where does my sister and her partner feel isolated from each other? Oh, we have the 4 of Cups. So for me, I'm going to scooch these up so you can see what I'm doing here. So the 4 of Cups to me is a little bit of boredom. Okay, so we're feeling bored. We're feeling disconnected. We're not feeling like we're having fun together right now. Valid. Okay, now you've been able to answer that question. Prompt number 2, what is hidden? What is not being spoken about? What is unconsciously affecting the relationship right now? And we have the 8 of Wands. Maybe things have been moving too quick. Something's been moving too fast, right? And then the third prompt is, what is going really well right now? Like, what is the 10 of Cups in this relationship right now? And I got the High Priestess. Everything on a gut level, things feel really good. Things are going really well for both of you. Are you following? So like, if you're just wanting to come up with a spread because you feel like it gives you framework for a reading so you can give the reading without having to go organic with it, then you can pull 3 cards to create a spread. You can pull 3 cards, and for each one, come up with a question based on that card and what you know that card means. Now, I'm not going to say that can be challenging if you're not really comfortable with what each card means. So I don't know if that feels super accessible to you or not, Twirl. It's going to depend on how comfortable you are. You could also maybe pull an oracle deck. You could just you could just Google relationship spreads, if I'm being honest, if that's where you're at, right? But if you want to stretch the muscle of spread creation, then practice is where it's at. Stretch yourself, find new ways to come up with prompts and spreads, and you'll find it gets easier over time. Okay. So let me find your question, Stardust. Okay. So hopefully that helps, Twirl. I hope it helps. Okay. So, here it is. So Stardust asks, Stardust is one of my badass unicorns, y'all, so I'm throwing her question up first. Question is, what I've faced is telling someone what the positions are, and I've addressed that directly, but then in the moment, something hits intuitively that takes me on a different path. I feel like it's okay to just tell them I'm also getting this. Does this resonate, etc. But I don't feel trapped when I feel something comes through. So, okay, Twirl, I'll circle back to that then. So to answer Stardust's question, here's my thinking. If positions are boxing you in, there's two ways you could approach this. So like, you've read for somebody and you're like, okay, energy, obstacle, advice. But for whatever reason, the energy also feels like an obstacle, or your obstacle card also feels like a blessing or something, and you're getting something else. It's going in a different direction. I think that probably, what Grunewald said, intuition trumps rules in my world. Mine too. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Intuition trumps rules for sure. The problem is that sometimes we feel like once we've said the spread position out loud, it can feel like we're just making it up as we go along. Newsflash, we kind of are. That's like kind of what intuition is. But I don't mean to make light of it, because I'm a big fan of intuition. I'm really not making light of it, but I am pointing out that giving yourself permission to see it as something that is elastic and mutable is very, very helpful when you're reading. So I would just describe it as like, yes, this is the energy of the situation. And there's that rule in improv, right? The rule is yes and. Something can be something and be something else. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. So yes, this is the obstacle. And here's how that can benefit you, or here's something else I'm also getting from it. So I don't think you need to explain that when you're reading for somebody else. I don't think you need to qualify it or disclaimer it. I think you can literally just say, so in this case, the Fool as an obstacle is letting you know that you are really walking a fine line between doing what is right for you and maybe getting hurt in the process. Be aware that there's some risks involved. And I'm also seeing that you've got the help of a little companion with you who is a little companion. You've got the help of somebody nearby who, if you've got somebody in your ear giving you good advice, like, it might be worth tuning in because they might be able to help you through the situation. That was a yes and. I didn't stay just in that obstacle space. I let myself move beyond it based on what the card was telling me. Does that track a little bit with what you were saying? This, Dawn, is the Mons Tarot, the travel edition, which is this little guy, the travel size. I have 3 different versions of this. I have a first edition out of print. I have a second edition that I've trimmed to be borderless, and then I have this little travel edition. So yeah, does that Does that answer your question, Stardust? Think about that improv yes and when you're reading. Let yourself move wherever the cards take you. And remember that you're allowed to do that and you don't need to explain that. Most people, when you're, here's my opinion, I could be wrong, but most people, when you're reading for them, they don't really care how you got there. If you're reading for people who are super into tarot, then they might care. But I would say if you're reading for other readers, there's nothing wrong with telling them, hey, I'm happy to explain like kind of what I got from where at the end of the reading, but while I'm in it, I'm going to just go. And like, that's how it's going to be. Feel free to ask me questions when we're done about how I got there, if you want to know. So you could totally do that. So yeah, I hope that helps. All right. So let me take a peek at my list. And I have, oh, wait, before I take a peek at my list, sorry, I said I was going to circle back to Twirl. So Twirl, you said when you just want to chat with your cards and you want to come up with a reading on the fly, the exact same method I showed works. If you just want to play with your cards and you want to spread and you just want to have a conversation and you feel like you need a spread, then yeah, pull cards and create a spread. Judgment. I want to just chat with my cards. This is how I would do it. Judgment. So I'm being called to evolve. Huh. What am I being called to evolve from and to? Well, now I've got a spread. I'm being called to evolve from the world to the King of Cups. What does that mean? And then I go through that reading. So you can use tarot cards to create the spread position. And sometimes you pull one, and based on that one, like I just did, I pulled Judgment, and then I was like, oh, well, I want to know what I'm evolving from and to. So I've got a 2-card spread now. What am I evolving from and what am I evolving to? Inspired by the Judgment card. But the Judgment card was also part of my message, right? Or you could say, like, say I pulled the Emperor. In what way do I need to stand up and claim more authority in my life? The Lovers. I need to be aware of what I'm tying myself to. What commitments am I making? And how are those things pulling me out of my sense of my own authority? You know? Okay, Fina, I've added your question to my list. So hopefully that is a little bit more clarity for that question. Twirl. Okay, so unless I'm mistaken, that concludes my badass pre-asked questions. I'm going to go ahead and just continue on with the list now. So starting with Amber, Amber Catalyst says, I use 4+ decks per reading, and though it is very nuanced and complex and detailed, it can be a lot. I feel like using less would be giving me less information. In your practice, less or more? I feel like one of the temptations, I'm gonna riff on this for a second. One of our temptations, I think, as we get comfortable with the cards, is to go more and more and more, because it's so easy. If you think about it, if you get stuck in a reading and you start laying cards, and I'll show you an example in a second, the more you have, the less time you need to spend with each card, which is really comforting. I think in the beginning, you're going to go one of two ways with this. If I'm being honest, it's either going to be overwhelming and it's going to feel like, oh my God, I don't know what all this means, or it's going to help you kind of just keep rolling with it. I knew a friend of mine who read cards and always pulled, like, would answer a question for somebody and would pull, and I think still does pretty much pull, sometimes 10, 12, 15 cards, just answering the question, just as they're talking, just pulling more cards. That's valid. That's a valid way to read. Let me be very clear. However, there's a piece that I think is a different way to stretch and challenge yourself when we slow it down and we sit with less and we milk it for more. I'll show you what I mean in a second. I literally am so extra. I mean, same. That I want 6 decks at a time to get all the nuance from all the dimensions and realms and angles. I totally get what you mean. I've been reading my whole life, and this has been a new addiction since this year. So, I mean, number one, the first question, as always, you have to ask is it serving you? And if it's feeling overwhelming, it's probably not. So what I would say is, number one, still give yourself permission to pull out 4+ decks. Okay, still give yourself permission to go out 4+ decks. So let's start this. Let's just see. Okay, so and I love doing this too, but start and build instead of laying it all out from jump. This might be the difference for you. If you enjoy all these different angles, there's nothing wrong with that. The overwhelm might be coming from, and correct me if I'm wrong, might be coming from putting it all on the table all at once. Maybe that's not what you're doing. Feel free to clarify. But let's say I want to work with, I got a bunch of decks near me. Okay, let's just do it. Okay, so I'm going to lay out Mons Tarot. But I know in my head I'm going to want to use Mons Tarot. I froze. Hopefully I caught up now. I'm going to go all in. I want to use a bunch of decks. Now, I could create a spread where I'm laying down 3 of each and building it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 3 Mons Tarot. And I'm going to build it organically. Now, you don't have to build it organically. Let me be clear. If you have fixed positions, that's fine. Start with just 1 deck and the first couple of positions that use that deck. So my Mons Tarot is going to form the foundation of the reading with energy obstacle advice. So I'm going to sit with this for a second, and I'm going to take in what it's telling me first, instead of having everything down. So I'm going to say, okay, energy. Queen of Swords is my energy. Truth-telling, taking off the blinders. King of Cups is my obstacle. Might be getting a little out of balance between my emotion and my mind. For me, the King of Cups and the upright are in the positive slant. Somebody who's very emotionally, mentally balanced. Something's out of whack. Either I'm bringing in too much brain or I'm bringing in too much emotion and it's not fully in balance. And then Judgment is telling me that I've got an opportunity to level up. Cool. So now I'm going to, excuse me, now I'm going to add a layer. Sorry, y'all, my voice might not do well. I'm going to grab my Tarot of Oneness because this is first person. So I've sat with that and I've gotten my message. Now I'm going to build on that. So I'm going to go, okay, what is my Queen of Swords trying to tell me? That I need to do less. I need to work less. I think that was still on top from before, but we don't care. Let me just give it a little mix. We don't care. And for the King of Cups, since my emotion and mind is out of whack, what do I need to do to bring it back in whack? You know what I mean? In whack. Hi, Priestess. I need to listen to my intuition. Okay. And then for Judgment, my question might be, okay, so for Judgment, what am I being, and I know I'm being given an opportunity to evolve. What can help me do that? What can help me do that? And I have present moment. So being more present. Okay. So now I'm going to sit with this layer and stay here for a minute and sit with this. Now I'm going to grab my Oracle of Oneness. You know, so part of this is taking it step by step. If you normally lay it all out all at once, take it step by step and start to digest it a bit at a time. So now the Oracle of Oneness I'm going to bring in order to see what other context. I'm not giving them specific positions. Just what other context can I get from this? Ooh, seek unity of body, mind, and spirit and venture beyond the familiar. Now this happens to sit above the Queen of Swords. And this actually ties in beautifully with the message I was getting from my King of Cups. So if I sit with this for a minute, I'm like, oh, interesting. So part of what's got my King of Cups all out of balance is probably this whole focus on caring too much, trying to accomplish too much. So now seeking unity of body, mind, and spirit. If I want to really do this, if I want to bring him back into balance, if I want to bring this mind, emotion, energy back into balance, I'm going to need to really work on uniting these two, really balancing these two. And then over here, we've got venture beyond the familiar. And now I've got another layer I can kind of like dip into. So now this is sitting right above my Judgment card. Well, in what way am I being called to evolve is to get beyond my comfort zone. And we already have the how because it's the present moment. Maybe I want even more. So I'm going to put more Oracle cards down here. But maybe I want to grab my Align Heart and give myself sort of an affirmation, something that's going to help me do the work that's on the table. So I'm going to go ahead and scooch my King of Cups up just so I can make room. And at the bottom here, I'm going to lay my Align Heart affirmation. Oops. My shuffling is struggling, but I was shuffling a lot earlier today too. Okay, good enough, whatever. Okay, so here's my affirmation. I trust the love that others have for me is steady, constant, and unwavering. So maybe what I need to do is remember that I've got lots of support. I don't need to carry everything myself. I've got lots of support. I might even just drop this in the center like that. And there's my answer. But what I didn't do is I didn't overwhelm myself because I was taking it one layer at a time and only adding in more. Like Grunel says, so much blue is hard to ignore. I know there's a lot of like throat chakra stuff coming through here for sure. But like you get the idea, right? So it's kind of like when you know how to pull in colors or numbers or chakras or astrology or Cabala into your readings or anything like that, right? We have a tendency to think we need to do it all at once, and you don't. And you don't even need to do all of it every reading. And you probably shouldn't. There's an element of once you feel like you've gotten a cohesive answer, you don't have to keep going. So yeah, I like layering. I like being in conversation, but I find that if I have too much stuff on the table all at once, I can't focus. There's too many things to explore. There's too many rabbit holes to go down. And if you're like that, then if you want to work with 4 or 5 decks at a time, that's fine. But maybe see if you can slow it down. And I know you had a bunch of comments in chat, and I do want to go look at those because I'm sure I've missed some context, but I wanted to kind of see that through first and see where we ended up with that. So I'm just like stacking things, like it's fine. So let me see what you set up here. So you said, I think I get bored. Perhaps I need to go outside RWS and try a new system. Always valid to explore. My style, so Amber says, my style reading for myself is also very large, complex readings. I have DID, so I check in with all my parts and do huge past life readings for unknown shadow. The overwhelm is a good point. If it should resonate and flow, it doesn't need to be so complex. I'm already complex and need to simplify down. I like how this reflection happened. I feel semi-freed. Yes, I do very large constructed readings, so spread upon spread upon spread that make up an entire meaty reading. I lean into shadow stuff for trauma work, so I lay it out over and over and over. I also have a non-linear timeline perspective, so I'm pulling for the lower underworld, 1st to 3rd dimension, middle realm, earth, 4th to 6th dimension, and upper realm, 7th to 9th dimension for everything extra. But it gets me so excited, though, like a shaking chihuahua about to pee. I love it. That, though, if I'm being honest, and this is just me from where I would, what that would mean if I said that. If I said I was getting that excited, that would tell me, for me, again, just speaking for me, so see if it resonates for you or not, that would be me being overstimulated. That's me being overstimulated. And I'm not going to be able to process, even though I want to process all those layers, I'm not going to be able to effectively process and apply all those layers. And here's what I would challenge you to do. If you are somebody that always loves to go all these extra layers, I would encourage you to challenge yourself to do it the other way. And here's what I mean by that. If you are somebody that always likes to have tons and tons of stuff on the table, whether or not you feel overwhelmed, this is a worthy exercise. Take a deck. It does not matter which one. It can be a Rider-Waite-Smith, boring old. Sorry, guys. I really get bored with the Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm just saying it like it is. But okay. So, and this is a clone. This is like still almost a little boring to me at times, but it's so cute that I get over it. But so you take one, ask a question. I want to check in with one of my parts, whatever. It doesn't matter what the question is, but ask a question, pull one card, get out your journal, I'm not kidding. Get out your journal and make yourself write like one full page without stopping about how that one card is answering your question. Even better, challenge yourself to do 2 pages if you like to write. If you don't like to write, just maybe set a timer, sit with it for a certain amount of time. Challenge yourself to distill it down to the simplest, shortest, I shouldn't say simplest, to the least amount of cards you can handle, and try to get the most you can from that one card. You will be amazed, even the most boring deck, how much you can milk. If you have the kind of brain that likes all that stuff, all those layers, I guarantee you, I promise you, and I don't do that very often, I promise you, report back next Troubleshooting the Tarot, but I promise you, you will get much more than you expected from that one card. But the thing is, it's uncomfortable at first because we feel like we need more cards to get more info. You don't. I promise you, you don't. But if you do that, if you stretch that muscle, you'll find you need less on the table to get layer and layer and layer of reading. Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. Do what works for you and trust what works for you. But if you're looking for ways to stretch the muscle of being able to read more with less, then you got to challenge yourself to do that. I actually challenged that friend I was telling you about at the beginning who likes to read with lots and lots of cards. I said, challenge yourself. No more than 3 cards for a reading for somebody else. See how much you can do with just 3 cards, and then you'll surprise yourself. You'll get more than you think. What happens is that we have a way of reading, at least what's happened for me. We have a way of reading and we get very married to that way. For a long time, I could not get out of the Celtic cross. I was so attached to it. I had to force myself. I was so attached to spreads, I thought I couldn't read without a spread. So I challenged myself. And I think a lot of this is like teaching yourself to trust your capabilities and to practice and realize you can do so much more than you think you can do. Usually that's the case, I would say. I would argue. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, and you're welcome. Let's see what's next on the list. Paper Storycraft. How do you or could you use tarot for spells? I love this topic. I have all the time. I mean, if you think about it, if this is your practice to do intention work or magical work or spiritual work with your cards, how incredible is it that you have a tool, literally, that has everything you could possibly need? So I'll give you a couple of ideas that have worked for me and that I find enjoyable. Now, if I'm doing this work, I am using Miss Danny Mystic's Mystic Masters Tarot, so I feel like I need to get it. Because like this is my magical work deck. So I'll just use this because now I happen to have a deck that I reserve for this purpose. You don't have to have a deck reserved for this purpose. It's just how it is for me. Okay. So what I do is obviously if you are of this persuasion and you like to do intention work, magic work, spiritual work, use altar cards or cards to symbolize things, etc., to draw in intentions or manifestation work or whatnot. Oh, that's a good question, Hollow. It's on my list. So let's play one out as a group. Let's do this as a group. So somebody throw out what kind of spell you might want to do. Anyone, any topic, any subject within reason. Let's not get into details, just like protection, love, whatever. The first one I see, general idea. Reminder, we're not doing big world events. Just gentle reminder. Okay, healing. Perfect. Okay, so healing is great. Let me go back to, I want to make sure I can put the question up. Thank you so much for the idea, Curse. And let me find, I wish I could like keep track of my questions better. Here we go. Okay, so there's Paper Story. Okay, so let me put that back up. So we're going to do a healing magic. So as a group, name the first tarot card you think of when you think of healing. And let's assume this is physical healing. Somebody's going through, maybe a friend is in the hospital and you want to do some healing work for them. So what's the first card you think of for healing? So Curse says the Sun. Anyone else? Empress. Anyone else? Strength. Ooh, 4 of Swords. Oh yeah. 6 of Cups. I think we're already seeing how this is going to work, right? Okay, so let me just grab a few things here. So God, these cards just made me so happy. Keep it coming. The Star. I like Temperance too. I heard 6 of Pentacles. Did I pass 6 of Pentacles already? I don't think I did. There are coins in this deck. Oh, there it is. 6 of Coins. Feel free to share any thoughts about those. Okay. So I'm going to pull out those cards. Or some of those cards, I should say. I'm probably not going to pull them all. We'll just see which ones jump out at me as I go through here. I'm going to pull any that jump out at me too. You can also go through your deck and look visually for what feels like it's going to work well for the purpose. You might see one that like makes you think of exactly what somebody you know is going through, for example. And you might be like, oh, that one, you know, that's the one. Okay, there's our Star. There's our 6 of Cups. Interesting that the 6s come up since I think of 6s as balance and harmony. Yeah, Temperance is what I thought of too. That's usually my go-to for healing work, actually, is Temperance. So I'm just looking for it. I don't think I've seen the 4 of Swords yet either, and that's a really good one. Devil, Wands. There's our Sun. There's our Temperance. These are so great. You might even have, I'm going to go a step further with this. Here's our 4 of Swords. Okay, so let's pick a couple. We don't want to like totally overwhelm on the table. Okay, so let's just pick a few. So I think for this, I'm going to pull the Sun for the success element. We want the spell to be successful, so we want to manifest some of that. I think the Temperance card is going to be a great anchor for the healing. And actually, I'm going to put that on this side. And then I'm going to pull that Four of Swords for the rest element, the recovery element. Actually, I'm going to put the Sun down here. I'm going to put Temperance up here. And then we're going to flank it with Rest. And I'm going to also pull the Star. So this is what mine's going to look like on my table. Now, I'm extra when I do this kind of work, but we're going to start with it at its simplest point. So I'm going to see this as like the foundational level for this work. And I'm going to sit with this, and I might literally take a piece of paper or a journal. I do a lot of things writing. You might speak words over them. You might write over it. You might chant over it. You might, whatever. You can pull out candles that have the right colors. You can add herbs and sprinkle them around that are of the same intent. You can layer and layer and layer and layer if you want to do that. I've done that. You can layer. But at its base level, you always have everything you need if you have a deck of cards on hand. So let's stick with that. So here's what I'm thinking and how I'm focusing my intent for this particular thing. And I would probably write this, speak this, chant this, whatever. So Temperance is going to represent the healing as the actual act of healing. So this is my central card. This is where I'm going to be putting all of my intention. The Sun is going to be my desire that this be a successful spell. So this is adding that success energy to the working. On either side, we have the Four of Swords. And I'm going to say this is for a friend. I want this friend to be able to get the recuperation that they need. Now, I happen to know somebody who's not feeling really great right now. So I'm going to be thinking of that person in my mind right now. They've been going through a rough time. They are currently in the hospital, and I'm going to think of that person. That's just what I'm choosing to do. So, and that's because it happens to be relevant for me. So I'm thinking of Temperance as let this person have the healing that they need, and let that healing be successful. And as they heal, may they get the rest that they need so that they can recover their energy. And may this Star help them find a sense of hope and purpose again, as I know they've been really struggling. I want them to be able to see the light of the star in their life. Now I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to think of a card that just makes me think of them. And that's going to be laid over top of this. And you guys, I'm making this up on the fly, but this is how you can just play. So I'm actually going to pick the Page of Cups for them. So I'm going to lay this right over the top, and I wanted to touch all four cards because that's just how I feel. And then I'm going to leave this on my table. I'm actually going to move this, but I'm going to leave this out somewhere so that it can just do its work, and I'm done. And it doesn't have to be much. It's not much different than saying a little prayer for somebody or wishing them well. So I'm going to just lay this whole thing. I'm going to keep them all touching, actually, because I'm neurotic like that. And I'm going to just lay this over to the side. And I'm going to just keep it out as a placeholder. And then every time I see it over there, I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm sending some energy to this person. Easy. So much of this is like, what feels right. You can also, though, and I have done, get a little candle, pick one card to represent your intent, lay it out, get your little candle. It's really great to use this kind. This little holder is actually perfect for this, and I have used it for this. But let's say we're just doing one, and I might put all my focus into this one candle, or into this one card, and then just take my candle holder and put it over top. And it's doing this work now. It does not have to be complicated. It's no different than writing a little blessing on a piece of paper and dropping it in a prayer box. It's no different than lighting a candle for somebody. It's the same idea. You're setting an intent, and you're using the cards to represent the energy you want to bring in. I've used the Nine of Swords against insomnia. Yeah, exactly. There's so much good comments in the chat, by the way. Amazing. I love that. So I'm going to actually put my Mystic Masters box over there by that working. But there. Little on the fly magic. How we feel about that? It's pretty great. It's pretty great. And I did get your question, Melissa. I try to acknowledge when I add your question to my list. So if you don't hear me acknowledge that I got your question, feel free to repost it, and I can make sure I get it on my list. Okay. So I hope that was helpful, Paper Storycraft. I hope that answered your question. Okay. So I don't know if you're still here. Are you still here? Oh, this is for a reading. Sorry, I'm not doing readings. We're just answering questions about practice. Apologies. Okay. And I got Amber's question. Okay. So I have a question from Maria. I have a deck associated with a specific spirit guide. Whenever I use other decks, they feel like a different voice. Do you find you have a different spirit guide for every deck? Like, do you have one guide, but each deck is different facets? I want to start deity work, but all I hear is my one guide, the strongest. Do you hear different voices when doing deity work? Okay, so this is more personal, like how I do. Whoa, what did I do? I hit the wrong button. That's what I did. Okay, so let me just chit chat about this while I drink my coffee before it goes cold. I'll chit chat. I'll share my experiences. Okay. Yay, I'm glad it was helpful, Paper Story. Yes. Yeah, Grun says the 4 cards are easy to feed with candles, a drink, or crystals. Totally. Okay. So for me, I have always really only ever worked with one energy at a time. Whatever I call that energy, whatever energy I happen to be working with. As some of you know, right now I've been working more with like classical, like divine energy from like my side questing into the Bible and all that kind of stuff. So I've been in that space lately. So that's been the energies I've been working with. However, for me, it's always been like one main voice. So I may not have the right perspective to share. Other people might have better perspectives to share if they work with multiple guides. I've really only ever worked with one at a time. So whether it's one goddess, whether it is one guide, and I've only got one example of having a deck that is specific to that work. Actually, I have 2 technically. So I have one deck that lives at home by my bed, which I talked about. That's the one that I do at night, where I pull, where was the divine with me today? And then I have a oracle deck that I made out of a deck of playing cards that I keep on the go. So that's like my portable version of the same thing. Only I read it a little bit differently. That one I read more like direct advice from. And so for me, that's how I work with it. But I haven't had a situation. I know plenty of other people who have, though. I haven't personally had a situation where I'm assigning, where I have like different guides for different decks. Like this is, but a good person to watch on this that I know has made content talking about it would be Dawn Michelle. She has specific decks for working with, say, the Morrigan or with Persephone or Hades. And she's done work where she has decks for specific deities or other guide type energies that she's working with. And so she's got some interesting things around that. And I think there's something to be said for having a deck be specific for that work so that when you're pulling cards from that deck, you know what and who you're engaging with, if that makes sense. So I'm curious what the chat is saying. Yeah, Coven of Curiosity says, I have one deck that isn't my favorite, but it really talks to me better than any other. And I'm not entirely sure I'm even answering your question correctly, so let me know. But yeah, Kerr says just one ancestor, but it depends on the deck. One deck is associated with Hecate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Maria, you've seen her videos on that. Yeah, so I think that's really helpful. For me, I would find it difficult if I felt like every deck had to be associated that way. It would start to feel, I think, like I've got too many voices coming at me, if that makes sense. I think I would be overwhelmed by that, but that's me personally. I enjoy cultivating a very deep personal relationship and maintaining that relationship. There's no entity, guide, deity, whatever that I've ever worked with for less than like years that I can think of. I could be wrong. I could be misspeaking, but to my memory, I feel like typically I'm working with somebody over years. So that's usually how it works. This is a really good perspective too. So Amber says, I view all deities as parts and pieces of me, like an energy that is parallel to me to embody and embrace. With deities, it's all about vibes. As far as decks, same for ancestors, guides, it varies. That's a little adjacent to how I see it. So the way I see it, whether I have been working with Aphrodite or Clyde, my unicorn guide, or Mary or whatnot, I feel like I'm working. This is just me again. This is me speaking from my me place. I feel like I'm always working with the same divine energy. And that divine energy is present enough with me and draws close enough to me that is always willing to show up how I need that energy to show up so that I can interact with it. So I feel like the energy that has my best interest at heart, that is leading me in the most positive direction, will never abandon me and will always show up in whatever way I need it to show up. So that's, for me, it's like spokes on a wheel, all leading back to the same place. Others might see it much, much differently and feel like they are working with very different energies. So this is very personal to different people's spiritual practices. And I love all the feedback in chat for this. Oh, I love this. Yeah. So Curse says, like the old style tarot is my Italian ancestors, ethereal visions with my Greek and Norse pagan with my German. I love this. That's brilliant. And you can do it. Like Crystal says, I always indicate who I want to work with before I draw cards. So sometimes it's ancestors, spirits, deity, but the same deck. I mix it up. I think that's fabulous. Yeah. So like you can decide, like it's no different, I guess, than when you set your question before you go. It's like, who do I want to have a conversation with? And then have a conversation with them with that deck. So yeah, as long as you set your intention before you start, I think that's perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you're clear and you're not wondering whose voice is coming through because you've decided. It's kind of like, who am I calling on the phone today? Like, this is who I'm going to call. This is an interesting point. Maria says, okay, so I think maybe I get caught up by thinking the deck itself is my guide and not a tool that my guide is communicating through. That's the vibes I'm getting from everyone in the comments. Fair point. I personally don't personify the deck as being the guide itself. I always see it as a tool to help me communicate. So that does help me stay clearer. I would agree. Amber says, I both anthropomorphize deities, but also in an archetypal sense, but it all comes from source, God, Tao, Nirvana, upper realm, exactly, whatever you want to call it, just filtered down differently based on gnosis. I think that's a beautiful way to express what I was trying to say. Thank you, because you said it much better. Paper Storycraft, this is why I love the Angel Wisdom deck, as all the majors have a guardian in the majors. That's really beautiful. So it's a really thoughtful question, though, and I appreciate it. I hope that we were able to, between like chatting and stuff, that some different things came through that were helpful. Sinchai asks, and feel for you guys to continue the conversation in the comments. I just want to make sure I get to people's questions. So Sinchai says, I sometimes struggle to prevent, I'm stumbling all over myself. Sinchai says, I sometimes struggle to prevent 5 of Cups or 5 of Pence from taking over a reading when they show up. Any hints for learning how to read these energies in a more nuanced way? That's a really good question. So this coffee is not getting in me fast enough. Do you ever hit this point? It's cooling off. It's cooling off. And I'm like, it's not coming out of the little hole fast for me right now. Okay, that's way more satisfying. Sorry, I just really needed that in my mouth. Okay, that's a great question. So, any hints for learning how to read those energies in a more nuanced way? Are you still here, by the way, Sinchai? If so, I'd love to hear from you because I'm curious, do they take over because they feel so like intense, negative? Let's take a look at the 2 cards and just discuss kind of what they mean and how we can read them and see if that helps. So let me just pull out for this because it's in order and it'll be quicker. Let's pull out the Rider-Waite-Smith. Okay, so we have 5 of Cups and 5 of Pentacles. So let's take a look at these cards and what they mean. So let's look at them one at a time because they tend to take over. So 5 of Cups, we go right to the word grief a lot of times. And I would imagine that's one of the places you might get stuck. So if the 5 of Cups is grief, then how do you keep it from taking over? Here's what I will say about this. I'm sure it's my own. Wait, I'm still hearing. Yes, I'm sure it's my own damage, so to speak. I just struggle not to focus on them even when they aren't the focus. Yes, I totally get what you mean. So here's what I would challenge you to try. And we can even do this in the chat as like a live activity if you guys feel like playing along. Let's take the 5 of Cups. Come up with 20 keywords. This is going to be a little challenge. We're going to do this as a collective. So everybody think of a keyword that is not grief that the 5 of Cups could signify. Because grief always feels very big and very heavy. And we can grieve small things. And it's an easy keyword to go to. But let's all throw out some keywords in the chat for 5 of Cups that are not grief. And I will shout out a couple. Oops. I spilled some cups. Oops. Or mistake. Accident. I might go loss. Ooh, disappointment is great. Opportunity is great. Slump. Yes, mistake. Someone nailed it. Yep. Emptiness. Bummed. I'm just bummed out right now. Betrayal. Sure. Void. Heartache. Yep, I'm seeing disappointment. Make a list if you can. Write some of these down, especially the ones that feel less heavy. Guilt. Yes. And so end. Because here's the thing. If we take this card at its face, let's just make it real simple for a second. What do we know about this card? If we forget everything we've learned by just looking at the card, what do we know? This person's Head is down. They've got 3 cups of spilled beverage. That's actually all we know. Embarrassed? Oh, there we go. Yeah. And suddenly we realize that if we take the card at face value, just what does the image tell us? All we really know is that some stuff's been spilled. When we start taking it to these deeper metaphorical layers, we of course can get loss and depression, and we can get sadness and grief, disconnected. Yes. We can think, oh, this person was maybe waiting for some friends who didn't show up and got mad and had a temper tantrum and kicked them over. You can tell yourself all kinds of stories about this card. So if you can make deflated is such a good one, Crystal. That's brilliant. So yeah, you can come up with, if your goal is to come up with less heavy words, tea was spilled. Exactly. Less heavy words. On the Sassy Dragon, I think it's the Not Safe for Work. Peggy came up with spilled milk is just one more snack for the cat. So yeah, the milk is spilled, but the cat's going to get a snack. It's fine. Like we'll get over it. So it doesn't have to be, yeah, Curse just said crying over spilled milk. It doesn't have to be heavy. Okay, guys, let's pause on the 5 of Pentacles because it seems like that was effective. Let's do the same thing with the 5 of Pentacles. Burr. Maybe we're feeling chilly, metaphorically speaking. I lost my sock. I don't know. What's some good keywords? Oh my gosh, I'm suddenly struggling. Y'all help me out. I would say disappointment. I would say, looking at this face value, what do we see? It's snowing. We're on crutches. Slowed, S-L-O-W-E-D. Slowed. Lost is great. Cut off. Yep. Illness. Sure. Injury. Maybe you sprained your ankle last week and this card is reminding you. I love that coffee is inside. That was great. I love that. Whoever, Fina, that was brilliant. Marginalized. Sure. Scarcity. Misery. Camaraderie. Yeah. That both of these people are struggling, but they're together. They're keeping each other company. Yeah. Missing the bigger picture. What about look up? What are you missing? You're so focused on the ground in front of you. What are you missing? If they look up, they'll spot the window, right? So look up. Sanctuary. Yes. Lonely. Bankrupt. Look for the light. Challenge is so great. It's so expansive. Next step. Yeah. So when you're struggling with the heaviness of a card, try to, just like what we did with other exercises, try to go the opposite direction with it. Think of the most lighthearted view of the situation, of the card. Think of the simplest, easiest, gentlest version of that card. Think of the least complicated view of that card. I love look for the helpers. Yep. Ask for help. Assistance. Y'all are brilliant. Test. Yes, Erignon. Yeah, exactly. So how can you look at the simplest version of that meaning or look at the card at face value? What does the image tell you? Because I think what happens is that if you've ever pulled the 5 of Pentacles and it's literally been when like you've just lost your job and you don't know how you're going to get food on the table, you're going to build a strong association with that card and the heaviness of it. If you've ever pulled death around the actual death of a loved one, you're going to have heaviness around it. And we are going to get baggage as tarot readers, but we don't have to let that baggage rule us. We just need to sort of pull ourselves back from the most dramatic reading of the card and bring ourselves back to basics. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Sinchai says, this is fantastic. Thanks. Exactly what I needed. I just needed some help zooming out a bit. Yeah, I love everybody popping in was perfect here because you really gave us a ton of different ways to look at these cards. That was brilliant. Thanks everybody for playing along. That made that so much easier. And I hope that was helpful, Sinchai. Okay. I got to put these back now. Keeping this in order just makes my life so much easier. For these chats specifically, because often I want to reference a specific card. So it's helpful to have one deck in order for these. Okay, so next up I have Luke. And again, you guys, if you have questions, I'm still here for a bit. We've got quite a few to get through, but like just throw it in. And if I can get to it, I will get to it. I'm just going in order. Okay, so Luke's question. If someone is fresh and new to tarot, They already have a deck, but no knowledge or limited knowledge about the meaning of the cards, but want to get started right away. Where should they start? Feel free to share your favorite resources in the chat, guys. I'm obviously biased. I have a free course on YouTube called Tarot with Training Wheels that's super basic, really, really easy start. Teaches one keyword per card. Easy peasy. The videos are short. They're plain speak. They're not heavy with a bunch of esoteric stuff, and I find them to be useful. I've got a lot of feedback that they're useful. And then the book that I wrote is kind of based on that, but goes further, is Unlocking the Tarot. I mean, I'm going to shout out my own stuff, y'all. But truly, there are other great resources out there too. There's a new book out called Talking with the Tarot, I think. I endorsed that book, actually. Really good. There is Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sinova, if you want a book. But honestly, if you can direct them towards some free resources, like I said, that's why I have Tarot with Training Wheels as free, so that somebody has someplace they can go to just kind of like add to. Yeah, Zoe's saying the Labyrinthos app. Luke says, I already recommended your playlist to my friend. Oh, good. That's great. I appreciate that. But there are other really good resources out there. Just look up like Learn the Tarot in an Hour or whatever, and just see what we find. There's some good stuff out there. I don't know how much of it is like, I can't vet it all. So other people's recommendations are always really good. Feel free to always ask other people what their favorite starter resources are. I really like, okay, I'm actually working on a new project. Of course I am, because I can't stop. So as you know, Peggy and I created Sassy Dragons Tarot. Again, I'm not trying to shill y'all, but I do want to. I mean, I'm kind of shilling, but like not on purpose. I actually think it's genuinely a good resource. But a deck like this has the meanings right on the cards. So King of Cups, strong and a little squishy too. Use your emotional intelligence to navigate life's ups and downs. It's cute dragons, and it's got the meanings on it. Now, I'm currently working on a deck like this, but that is based on the Rider-Waite Smith. I've nicknamed it the Sassy Pam. It is in progress. It's in progress. So that'll probably be coming to my Etsy shop later. I want to make it I'm trying to make it high quality, but super affordably. It's kind of like the personal challenge I've made for myself. So I'm working on that. I'm probably just going to bring it straight to my Etsy shop. I'll keep y'all posted, but the Sassy Dragons is great. If you just want a deck that's like really easy to just learn the meanings right out of the gate. Yes. Biddy Tarot. A lot of times there are, there's great apps. Fool's Dog Tarot apps are great. Thanks, Michelle. But yeah, there are truly, there's a lot of great resources, but I would say start free, because when possible, start with free resources, because you don't know if like this person's going to really get into it, right? Yeah. Labyrinthos is great. The Wizard Tarot from Etsy. Okay. And the Fountain Tarot. Those are not easy beginner decks. Oh, I don't know Wizard Tarot, so I should back off on that point. I have no idea. But Fountain Tarot mass market, I would say that's a challenging first deck to learn. It's beautiful though. Decks that come with great guidebooks are good starter points. So yeah. But yeah, any good free resource is a great place to start, because he might just play around with it for a bit and then decide, nah. So ideally you don't want to like get in too deep, you know what I mean? Until you know. Yeah, this is really good advice too. Anna Bueno says, if you want to discover your own personal meanings, I liked laying out all the same numbered cards together and trying to find a concept that linked them. That's a really, really simple and easy exercise to do that will teach you a lot for sure. And yeah, libraries in America have tons of tarot books in circulation if you're out of the closet with cards. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Oh yeah, I forgot. Charles Harrington's new book. Yeah, that's a really good one. Tarot and Oracle Card Reading for Dummies. That one is really comprehensive and good. But again, I would still say, if possible, point them to some free resources first and then go from there. Okay, Curse is up next. So Curse says, I've been reading for about 5 years now, but I always struggle with court cards. What's your advice, especially when all 3 cards are courts? What's the best way of reading them? So I took a very specific approach to working with court cards. Number one, I didn't assign them. So with the rest of the cards, I assigned them a single keyword per card to sort of befriend each card. with the court cards, I found it helpful to instead, and I talk about this in my book, but I found it helpful to instead apply a sliding scale. So for example, my King of Pentacles is, I think, wise to stubborn. I'm trying to remember. And then I also assigned a like a fictional character to them. Now, this isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it worked for me. Yeah, wise to cynical. I was like, is it cynical or is it stubborn? Stubborn's my Knight of Pentacles. That's right. And the way I see it is it's a sliding scale. So I have two keywords, one positive and one more negative or less helpful. And so my thinking with the court card is that by assigning a sort of positive and negative trait and seeing it as a sliding scale, right? Where this character kind of operates on a spectrum between those two extremes. At his best, he's really, really wise. And at his worst, he's super cynical. He thinks everybody sucks. You know what I mean? Like he's a little bit bitter and like, you know what I mean? He's like in that space. And so when you allow yourself to slide between two traits, that gives you a couple of benefits. Number one, it makes that court card come to life a little more than trying to like restrict them down to just one concept. And then if you take the next step and you assign them a fictional character. So he's Richard Gilmore for me from the Gilmore Girls. That's who my King of Pentacles is. So when I pull the King of Pentacles, I think about Richard Gilmore and how he could be this like wise, kind of helpful grandpa, but he could also be like really kind of cynical and sour. And like, depending on how he was feeling, he could run along that spectrum. And that helps him be very three-dimensional. So when I get this card in a reading, let's say this shows up, I'm doing an energy obstacle advice, and I pulled him in the obstacle position. That cynicism is going to be my obstacle. I'm being Richard Gilmore on a bad day. That's my obstacle. You know what I mean? And so if you can bring the court cards to life in a way, you have more options for how you read them. So that's my solution. I'm sure there's some other great feedback in the chat as well. But assigning a keyword or assigning a couple of keywords as spectrums, for me, that's very, very beneficial. Others might find that limiting, but for me, it really opens him up. You can also think about their elemental combination and just stick there. So for me, pages are the earth of their suit. Knights are the fire of their suit. Queens are the water of their suit. And kings are the air of their suit. And the way that I remember that is that pages are all very young. They're closer to the ground. They're smaller. Okay. Knights are in movement, which is how I think of fire. Fire is very active. Queens are feminine, and I think of water as feminine. That's just how I think of it. And kings are often in thrones, and we can usually see that their heads are, this is such a dumb thing, but like a lot of times they're on thrones that seem bigger than they should be. They're closer to the air. They're also taller as like men, I guess. I don't know. Anything that helps you remember. Okay. So once you have the elemental combination, you get to do a cool thing. When the King of Pentacles comes up, I'm looking for an example of the air part of Earth. What does Earth behave like? How does Earth behave when it's being airy? What does that mean? If I think of Earth as something stable and grounded, and I think of air as something that is all about the intellect, then this is somebody with a grounded intellect, or this is where I need to use grounded intellect. What is grounded intellect? It's kind of like wisdom, in my opinion, right? It's intellect you grounded in experience. And I'm just doing that off the fly because I know the elemental combination. So then if we take like the Knight of Pentacles, he's the fiery part of Earth. What does Earth do when it gets moving? Well, it moves, but it probably doesn't move very quick, you know? So when Earth is in movement, right, I can go, okay, well, it's making progress. It's steady. It's probably easy to keep up with. But if it hits any snag, it's going to stop moving. And what is the Knight of Pentacles? He can get stubborn. He's reliable, but he can be stubborn. He's a little slow moving. It makes sense, right? And so you can start to pull those elemental combinations into how you view the card and how you read it in different scenarios. So if you know those things and you can incorporate those things and you start to kind of memorize those aspects, what does it mean when you're in the Queen of Cups? She is the watery part of water. It doesn't get any waterier than that. What about when you're in the Page of Pentacles and you're in the earthiest part of Earth? What does that mean? How does that behave? Now that's helpful if you have a strong affinity for the elements and what they can mean. So some of what we're doing when we're like learning different ways to sort of hack our tarot interpretations in our practice is we're thinking about the things that we're good at. I am anyways. I'm good at building associations. So like colors, elements, I'm really good at building those associations. So I tend to fall back on that kind of stuff when I get stuck. You might be the opposite. You might need something more dynamic to fall back on, like a personality or like a fictional figure that you can like bring to mind whenever a card comes up. So yeah, hopefully that will help. One practice that I found or do find really helpful if you're struggling with the court cards is get a favorite deck, one that's not boring to you. It should be interesting to you, especially with interesting court cards. Pull out your 16 court cards and do 1 to 3 card readings using only court cards for a week. Just try it for a week. Every day, energy obstacle advice, only with courts. See what happens. Get yourself some practice reading the courts in different scenarios, answering different kinds of questions using only the courts, and you'll get more comfortable with how to handle them when they do come up. Yeah, Amber says, I use Jungian archetypes for my courts. Yeah, Sinchai says, I loved that part of unlocking the tarot. It was enormously helpful. Yay! It was like, I had a lot of fun writing that chapter. A lot of fun. Curse says, oh, I keep just saying the first part of your name. I'm so sorry, but I think it's Curse Culebra. I'm so sorry. It's just easier to say Curse. I don't think you're a curse, I promise. But anyways, oh, that's a great way because I have to keep shuffling for clarification and looking in guidebooks. Yeah, I hope that helps. I do. I hope that helps. Okay, so we have a question from Stardust. Are you still here, Stardust? Hey, Caleb. Oh, thank you. Oh, you've been binging everything? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, everybody struggles with court cards for sure. They're hard because they're different and we keep thinking they're supposed to be people. If we stop thinking that they always have to be people, I think it actually helps a lot, to be honest. They don't have to be people. You can make that rule for yourself, but I think that boxes us in a bit. I like to see them as just energies. They're just more personified energies. Stardust says, I'm here. What did I ask? Okay. Stardust said, question is, what I've faced is telling someone what the positions are, and I've addressed that directly, but then in the moment, something hits intuitively. It takes, oh, I think this was you clarifying. Oh, I think this was you clarifying from earlier. Oh, yeah, this was just you clarifying from earlier. I can unstar these. Okay, sorry. Okay, Hallow Tarot asks, do you incorporate Cabala in your readings? If so, why? And if not, why? No, because I can't keep it in my brain. Now, every once in a while, some will just pop up out of like nowhere. Out of nowhere. I can't stop thinking about the fact that the Fool is kind of coming down from Kether, for example, because I've learned that it just stuck somehow. I know that Malkuth is like closest to the earth, and that's stuck somehow. A few of the Cabala things have kind of stuck. Most of it hasn't stuck, so I 99% of the time don't reference it. My brain does not hold on to... The more esoteric something is, I feel like, number one, it tends to bore me, and that's not great. I need things that come to life for me. And for whatever reason, Cabala has never really quite fully grabbed me, and I have tried, and I've studied it. I've read it. I've read it in numerous different places. I think that when I'm working with a deck that uses it super intentionally, like I'm thinking of the Maria Tarot or Thoth in general, oftentimes, as long as I have something to reference, I'll find myself being more drawn to try to pull it in. But if I'm honest, it's just not my style. It's just not my style. So, I mean, your mileage may vary. It's one of those things where, just like with any other layer in the tarot, I don't think you're required to pull in every single layer that exists. Can you imagine, for real, for a second, can you imagine, why do I keep doing that? Can you imagine all of the layers that go into the possible interpretation of a tarot card? Imagine if we had to incorporate every single one all of the time. Imagine. We got colors, we got chakras, we got planets and star signs and decans. We have elements. We have Golden Dawn stuff. We got like there are so many layers. Like for real, just pick your favorites. that's how I roll. I think it's great when people can pull it in, and I love to hear people incorporating it, and I love when anybody geeks out. If Cabala excites you and you geek out on that stuff, 1000% learn that, incorporate it into your readings. It just doesn't, it's never grabbed me, and I've tried. And yeah, we actually got into it quite a bit with the, Luke says, I'm reading Phantasmagoria, Tarot of Vampires Guidebook by Ian Daniels. We did a whole members deck study on that. The back content is actually still there if you join the membership. But that was a great study, and we went really deep in all of that, and I had a great time with it. But it just doesn't stick. Yeah, it just doesn't stick. And everybody's entitled to their views on it, but yeah, it doesn't stick. I mean, there's a long history of it being used in a variety of esoteric ways, but yeah. So Fina Ray says, what if you get a card like the Devil or the Tower as your advice? I think that's great. Any card can be advice. I'm going to use my own deck as an example because I address this in the way that I wrote the guidebook for Unicorn's Journey Tarot. So it's just easy, but you can do this with any deck. So let me just go to the Devil. Oh, let me split my view again. Back to my view. Okay. So I'm not going to shuffle. This is my unshuffled deck. Okay. Let me just go get the Tower and the Devil. They're right next to each other after all. Okay. So before I get into my guidebook, let's just look at it this way. Okay. So you get the Devil as your advice card. Well, what's the best way to word this? If you are in a Devil situation, how do you get out of it? How do you get out of it? That's your advice. If you're in a Tower situation, how do you move forward? How do you get away from that situation? Or how do you move past that situation? That's your advice. So how I handled this in the Unicorn's Journey guidebook, if I go to the Devil card, I would look for, I incorporated into the guidebook a section that says to get back on track. So that's the advice. So in my case, it says to get back on track, look within to face the difficult truth of your situation and break free of the rut you're in. And so it's baked in because the idea is that when you have a card that is more negative in its standard interpretation, so the Tower, the Devil, the Ten of Swords, the Three of Swords, etc. When you have a more negative card, then your advice is how you handle that situation. Essentially, how do you get back on track when you're dealing with this? How do you move forward? If you're dealing with a card that is the more positive, then what do you do when you get that card in an obstacle position? You look for the way that energy can be negative or could be keeping you stuck. Yeah, and there's some great stuff in the comments. Anna says, I would say, ask yourself, what is the good that can come out of the situation? Yeah. So let's take the Tower. So in the Tower, something's come crumbling down. It's in the advice situation. It's saying something's come crumbling down. Now, sometimes, legitimately, if I get the Tower in advice, it might literally be giving you the advice that it's time to let something crumble or it's time to tear it down yourself. Something is no longer working. You got to break that shit down and move forward, right? So sometimes that's what I would get. The Devil, more likely I'm looking at how I can get out of a situation of being stuck. That's usually going to be my advice. But for the Tower, sometimes you do got to tear down your own towers, right? And it says, you've had an awakening. Something you've been relying on is crumbling in front of your eyes and you are powerless to stop it. Now, if I go down to reversed, it'll say to get back on track, stop resisting the changes ahead and let the Tower fall. Yeah. Yeah, Luke says, I would say, what's the breakthrough moment after it crumbles? Yes, exactly. Caleb says, the Devil, I feel, asks me to look at what's owning or lording over me, what's taking up my precious mental space. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Exactly. So like, if you just put yourself in that card or in the experience of that card, I think you'll find that most of the time, the advice can come through. Some of it is like, it sounds really basic or kind of, I guess, oversimplified, but it's as simple as simply saying, how is this card? What wisdom does this card have to offer me? Like, what advice? It's kind of funny when this question comes up because my Convocation of Witches tarot that I'm working on now, it's a deck of elder witches. One of the things I'm doing with that is every witch and every card, the group of witches or the witch that is in that card is giving you advice. So there is going to be a words of wisdom from this witch kind of section. Kind of like how I have a self-worth message in here. My Convocation of Witches, there will be witches' wisdom or like what's their advice for you? Because every card has advice, either because the the character in the card that's gone through that experience is like, hey, learn from my experience. And you can kind of see it that way. If you personify what you see happening in the card, right? What would these little insects that just got in this like conflict tell me? What advice would they give me, having just been through that situation? Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the angle I am taking with Convocation of Witches. So same idea, right? What advice would the Empress give me? What advice would whoever sent these 8 wands streaking through the air give me? You know, what advice would the star give me, etc. It can help you to kind of like ask it out loud or like write it down. Sometimes that's all you need to get your brain past the this is a negative card, like knee-jerk reaction that you have to it. And yeah, Caleb says the devil doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing as long as you keep your vices in check. Yeah. Yeah, and it can also be to indulge you without guilt. Sometimes the devil is an invitation to let loose a little bit. Maybe we're letting ourselves get too constrained by social constructs, social rules, right? How can you release? How can you let go a little bit? And yeah, Tarot with Jay says, one of my favorite Tower cards is in the Everyday Witch. It's the witch who owns her own evolution. Because in the Everyday Witch Tarot, she's got this smirk on her face. The tower is burning behind her and her wand is still smoking, right? She burned that shit down herself. And I love that. I think there's something really empowering about that. Really beautiful. So yeah, I love that one too. Hello, Tarot. Is there a part of Tarot that you keep secret? What I mean is there a part of Tarot that you don't share with anyone else? Sure. I mean, to a degree, there are practices I have that I don't talk about because they're too personal. The way I might pull cards in a given scenario, the way I might work with cards for trauma work for myself. I'm pretty open. I'm not a good example of this because I'm kind of an open book in general. There's not a lot I keep secret. I don't talk a lot about my real deep spiritual work because it's so personal and it's not relevant to everybody else in the room, you know? But as far as me, like if you mean secret from like YouTube, that's what I would say. If you mean secret from like people in my life, I mean, again, it's more a matter of like if it's relevant. Like I don't feel the need to hide any part of my practice, but I also have a very tight social circle, like a very tight like network, personal network. I have a handful of people very, very close to me who I can tell anything to, and people I can't tell anything to tend not to be a big part of my circle. I guess is the best way to express that. But not everybody has that luxury. A lot of us have family and friends who are kind of middling on the tarot. Okay, for example, my boss. My boss is not going to get my spiritual practices with tarot. Like he struggles to get any of my practices with tarot. So we talk about it a little, but I'm not going to belabor him with some of the details because he won't be able to follow. So yeah, got your question, Curse. So yeah, I think there's always some that are personal, especially from YouTube, but mostly I'm pretty open. But everybody's mileage is going to vary with that. I'd be curious to hear from people in the chat if there's certain things you do with tarot that you feel you either want to or is beneficial to keep secret. Okay. Is there any coffee left? Oh, there is. I'm gonna finish this off. Hold on. It's definitely cold now, but it's good. It's still good. Okay. Trisha Wartooth says, occasionally I pull a card or a couple of cards in a spread and they just don't feel right. Is it okay to re-pull cards or to leave them out of the reading altogether, or should we stick with them? Okay. Well, my opinion, I think it's important to stick with them. And I'll tell you why, because, and this is just my personal, it depends too on if you're reading for, does it depend? Hold on. Let me check myself for a second. Does it actually depend? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't depend. Hold on. Let me think about this. I'm going to adjust my sitting position because I really like to sit cross-legged. So fixing myself. I'll say this again with just the babbles. I've talked about this before, but in my opinion, what happens is we pull a card or multiple cards and they don't feel relevant, or we get nothing from them. And so I've talked through this. You can find, I think, a clip video where I talk about this. I don't remember what I would have called it, but my thinking is this. Every card has relevance, but it may not tell the whole story. However, our inclination is to move past discomfort. As human beings, we like to move past discomfort. That's natural. There is a benefit to be had by not gut reacting to discomfort. Somebody says something that makes me uncomfortable. I can react to it in that moment, and I might miss the point. And I do this all the time because I'm human and I'm very reactive. Or I can sit with it for a few minutes and decide on my own and in my own time how I feel about that. And I find that when I sit with it a little longer, I'll almost always get some value out of that experience, even if I don't agree, even if I still don't feel it's relevant, or even if I'm still confused at the end of it. So let's say you've pulled a few cards and they're just like nothing. It's just blank. Sit with it a second. Maybe turn over. Let's say you've got 3 cards and none of them seem to be saying anything. Turn over the second 2 and look at only the first card and ask yourself how it answers your question. And really, I want to say force, but that's not the right word. Encourage yourself to stay with it past the point where you want to pull more cards or re-pull. And see if anything new bubbles up with that discomfort. Like, convince yourself that there's absolutely an answer to your question in that card. And then once you get anything, it doesn't have to be a lot, just, okay, well, I guess maybe it could be saying whatever, anything. Then if you're still stuck, pull an additional card. So let me show you, I've shown this, let me show this in practice, okay? So I'm just going to pull a card, okay? So I'm trying to ask a question, I don't know, I've asked a question, and I have the King of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles, why? And then the 6 of Wands. I need to zoom us out because we're going to need more room. Okay, so I'm sitting with these cards, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I was just asking about my work situation. What the heck are these King of Pentacles? I don't get any of this. This is nothing. Okay, first I'm going to try to sit with it a little longer. I'm not getting anything, but let's just wait. And let me just think about it. How does the King of Pentacles answer my question? How does the Queen of Pentacles? Okay, I'm still not getting anything. I'm still like, whatever. Okay, turn over 2 of them. Sit with just the King of Pentacles. I've asked about my stupid work situation. What does the King of Pentacles mean? Okay, this is somebody who's maybe like worked hard to get where they're at. They're experienced. They're wise. They can also be like kind of grumpy, kind of sour, kind of like set in their ways. Does that describe anything in my work situation? Actually, yeah, that kind of sounds like my boss. Okay, like not mine for real. I'm just playing hypothetically. Okay, next card. Okay, so maybe that's my boss. Cool, whatever. Queen of Pentacles. What's her deal? Well, she likes to take care of everybody else. She likes to make sure everybody else is like well-fed and comfortable. And maybe sometimes she neglects her own needs and she's so busy taking care of everybody else. Does that describe anything in my situation? Well, it could be me. I might be like trying to be too much of a people pleaser in my job, and that might be creating some discomfort. Okay, I've gotten something now. It's not great, but let's pull the 3rd card. Success. What the heck? Like, my job sucks right now. I didn't get the raise I asked for. What the heck is this? What is this victory card doing in my spread? Oh, well, it's also about like other people recognizing my work or recognizing outside recognition. Maybe I'm feeling like my worth is dependent on this raise, on getting some sort of external recognition. Maybe that's what it is. And so, yeah, I'm doing that process because of my own understanding of the cards. But you like Marcella pointed out, I usually go to the guidebook because most of the times the author's point of view really helps. I do that myself all the time. When I'm reading for myself, I almost always look in the guidebook. I just love getting those other perspectives. It helps me get out of bias too. But let's assume that you don't have a guidebook with you. All you have is a deck of cards and you're just doing the best you can. Okay. Once you have sat with it and gotten something out of it, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Then pick up your cards and redraw, and like pull more cards. Like say, okay, I understand like the nuts and bolts of it. I've gotten something. Now let me do new cards. Or what I prefer is to go kind of card by card. So I don't tend to lay a lot all at once, usually 3 at most. So let's say I only drew the King of Pentacles and I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's my boss. Now I'll have a conversation with this card. This is kind of like what I do instead of clarifiers. It's like, okay, I get that's my boss, but that doesn't really answer my question. Like, how am I supposed to deal with this situation like at work? So, okay, so my boss is like, yeah, he's got experience, but he's a little cynical, whatever. Like what do I need to do about that? Okay, well, now I've got the 8 of Pentacles. Now I know this is about perfectionism and like trying to get things just so, and like doing it over and over again. And maybe sometimes it's about repetition. Maybe my job is boring right now, but but I also, maybe I'm holding myself to too high of a standard, or maybe my boss is holding me to too high of a standard. And so you can kind of start to build, okay, now let me clarify further. So I can kind of keep the conversation going, right? And now I can continue, but it's not because I'm pushing away whatever that first card had to say to me. I'm pulling it closer. Hopefully that makes sense. The goal is to always be willing to engage through the discomfort, because I think that when we do that, we get messages, because our hindbrain, like our subconscious, is motivated to push things that make us uncomfortable away. So sometimes there's wisdom we're missing because we're rushing to repull. Does that make sense? So before you rush to repull or you rush to grab a clarifier, I would say, this is just my personal take, do what works for you. But I find it really helpful to push past that initial, like, I'm not getting anything feeling, and really sit with it. And still, sometimes I catch myself trying to like redraw. I did it this morning in Badass Unicorn Chat. We were doing a workshop. I can't remember what card it was, but I pulled something. I'm like, I'm getting nothing. And I started to pick it up and I said, nope, I'm going to follow my own advice and I'm going to put my card down and I'm going to sit with it. And it ended up working out just fine. But yeah. And Kirsch says writing it out helps a lot. And I agree. It definitely does. Hi, John. I am adding your question to the list, although I am fading a bit, so I don't know how much further we'll get. We'll see. Actually, there's not very many left, so I think we'll be okay. So anyways, I hope that helps, Trisha. I think that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but that's how I roll. Okay, Melissa Glassman says, could you use the Unicorn Tarot to manifest where you'd like spirit to show up and use that for healing work? Oh, okay, I get what you mean. This is probably from earlier when we were doing some healing work. Yeah, so like I use this deck. Let's just see. I've never tried it that way. So I use this deck to kind of see where the divine has been with me throughout the day. And I use it as a reflective prompt. But let's say we want to do a reading of like, I want to manifest where I need the divine's support or spirit's support. So let's say I'm really struggling at my job. I might go pull. Well, let's just see what is the struggle. Let's see. Let's come up with a scenario. You said healing. So yeah, let's see what happens if I just go find Temperance, which is again a card I tend to think of when I think of healing. So let's just see. Oh, my Emperor is upside down. Wow, where is Temperance? For real? There it is. Okay. Yeah, so in this case, the unicorn is laying at the angel's feet, sort of adding support to that healing. So sure, I don't see why you couldn't. I think that would work. I don't know that I would use it that way just because I'm so used to looking at this in a particular way that it's actually hard to get my brain to flip the script here. But yeah, I think you could. I think you definitely could. Yeah, Mark, if you don't get the message right away. That is really handy. Sometimes just leaving the reading on a table or taking a picture so you can like let it sit is really helpful. For sure. Lady Pluto. Hi. Okay, so Lady Pluto asks, are there any exercises you recommend when you are learning to trust your intuition? I'm an intermediate reader, but have trouble trusting my intuition lately. Please and thank you. So when you say you're having trouble trusting your intuition lately, I hear that this is new. Like usually it's okay to trust your intuition, but for some reason you've taken a hit in that regard. Exercises. Some of my favorite intuitive exercises. Let me think. Do I do intuitive? I mean, okay. So one simple way to just stretch your intuition a little bit. I don't know if it'll help you. I'm trying to think if it'll help you trust it more. Because trusting it more is, I think, just a matter of doing it and just seeing how it goes. You know what I mean? But I will say, one thing you can do is do like a daily practice of that's a little bit predictive, not in a like nothing outside your personal practice, just a little bit like, what's something I need to be aware of today? And then pull a card and challenge yourself to find something it's telling you that is not directly or obviously associated with the classical meaning of the card. Okay, here's an example. So in the King of Cups, my eye is drawn to that little paper boat. And I'm going to say that my intuition, because that's where my eye went and that's where I was drawn, I'm going to say, maybe this is telling me that one thing I'm going to need to be more aware of today is taking things a little less seriously, bringing a little bit more lightheartedness into my day, a little bit more playfulness in my energy. Not everything is make or break. I'm going to have to keep that lightheartedness. And then write that down. Maybe take a picture of the card and just write that down. Lighten it up today. And fold that piece of paper up and put it by your bed. And right before you go to sleep, open that piece of paper up or like look at the picture on your phone or whatever you need to do. And ask yourself if that was a fair thing, if that made sense with how your day went. Was that good for you to keep in mind? Or in what way did that serve you? Or would have served you if you to remember that that was your intention for the day? You know what I mean? That can be a simple thing. Because what you're doing is twofold. You're teaching yourself to look at something that is not necessarily related to the classical meaning of the card and go with the first thing that occurs to you. And you're checking in later to see how that played out for you. Was that right? Was that a good intuitive hit? Because a lot of it is letting yourself getting out of your own way. So let's look at another example. 4 of Swords. And the first thing that my eye was drawn to was the 3 swords hanging over the head. And the first place my brain went when that's where my eyes were drawn was, how can I keep from like putting myself in a position where I feel like I'm at risk today? Like they've decided to sit and do their meditating underneath 3 hanging swords. Seems a little precarious. Like you couldn't sit like 6 inches to the left and like not have some swords hanging over your head, bro. Like that's just where my brain went. So I'm like, okay, that's where my intuition led me. So I'm going to take a picture of that card and write that down. Don't put myself in precarious situations. Be a little bit more aware of my surroundings and make sure I'm putting myself in safer situations today. Does that make sense? So the idea is stretch yourself a little bit beyond the rote meaning of the card. Write that thing down. See how it played out by the end of the day and just check in. It doesn't have to be so predictive, but more like what advice would like help you get through your day? And then ask yourself, was it effective? If it was effective, your intuition led you in the right way, like led you the right direction. Does that make sense? Keep it expansive, keep it open, practice it and see if it feels right. And that kind of thing could be helpful. I don't know. I'm off the cuff here. It's just an idea. All right. Curse says, I'm a writer and I want to involve tarot in my writing. If you have any insight, I'd love to hear it. Oh my gosh, this is a huge topic. There's so many ways you can do this. And I'm pretty sure there's books out about this topic. My book, The Self-Worth Path, this is a nonfiction book, but it's 21 steps to self-worth. And each one is inspired by Tarot's major arcana. It gave me a structure to describe the process I wanted to teach in this book, the one that worked for me. And so step 9, practice aloneness. Step 13 is death. Know when it's time to let go. Step 17, right, is the star, get naked. So there's a vulnerability in the star. Step 3, move for the fun of it. This is about embodied movement. That's our Empress. And so like I've used it that way. You can also use it to inspire characters and storylines. I mean, there's like a bazillion ways. Like I said, it's kind of a bottomless topic, honestly. If there's any other writers in the group who use tarot in your writing, feel free to share your thoughts. But for me, I would say this is a big topic and the sky is the limit from a creativity standpoint. Their storytelling spreads. There's decks. Like I have a deck, an oracle deck for writing prompts. It's not the tarot, but same thing. Like, I mean, you can pull any card. Like, let's say you're stuck, you don't know where to take your characters next. Pull a 3-card spread and let that decide what's going to be the next situation. Let's say you've got 2 characters in a romance and you need a twist. What's your twist? 9 of Swords. Does one of them have crippling anxiety or wake up with a terrible nightmare and the other one needs to come and help them? Like, you're only limited by your creativity in that context. Yeah, using it for writing blocks just to get words on a page, sure. You can put your characters in a situation that the cards describe. You can use it to define the personality of a character. Yeah, you're planning more creative writing prompts. Yeah, I think that's good. It's fun to play with your cards that way, for sure. Yeah, Sanchai says, I occasionally use tarot when I've written myself into a corner and can't figure out how to solve the problem. I wrote myself into it. Works. I use tarot for character building, from family dynamics to relationship experiences. Yeah. You can just play. John Clark says, I feel that I lack confidence when I do readings for others. How can I resolve this? So much of this, it really depends on the root of where you feel self-conscious. Excuse me. My voice is about done, y'all, because I was live for 3 hours this morning too. I would say this. Ask yourself what it is you are feeling self-conscious or intimidated about. Are you worried your readings are going to be wrong? Change how you read. And by that, I mean, if you're giving very, very fixed, very specific predictions, you don't have to read that way. If you're worried or you're feeling anxious or you're lacking confidence about accuracy, for example, in that context, you can change the way you read. I'm not saying that you should, I'm saying you can, and then get comfortable reading in a more present-based way, and then build on that from there until you feel more confident. A lot of it is, you could read for people and ask for feedback. That's one way to build confidence. Read for friends who will, and say, like, I really need you to be honest. How did this feel for you as somebody who received this reading? You can do readings, offer readings to people online. Sometimes there's reading swaps. We do a Friday reading swap in the Unicorn Fan Facebook group. It's not very highly utilized, but people pop in there now and again and say they want to do a swap, and then they'll do a swap. It's a great way to practice. And you can just say, I really want feedback on this experience. Getting feedback really helps build confidence. So the more vocal people are about their experience with you as a reader can really help. Reminding yourself that your goal is not to fix people's problems, but to simply give them an empowering reading that can help them solve their own problems. That's my take. That's a little bit more opinionated of me, I suppose. Depends on your reading style. There's a number of things, but you can really experiment with, especially, well, let me back up. If you read for yourself, that can also help, right? Read for yourself, give yourself whatever type of reading you like to do. Do the same thing for yourself, and then track the results. Track how it went. I don't read as predictively. I read more like tapping into a current situation. And I also always read with the intent that my goal is to leave whoever I'm reading for with the empowerment and the agency to make the right decisions for themselves. I'm not trying to, like I said, fix anybody's problems, and I'm not trying to give them the only correct path forward in a situation. I might try to give them an option for a path forward. I might try to tell them that based on their current trajectory, there's a few things they can maybe expand into or do differently. But I read in a way that is consistent with building confidence. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to articulate at the moment, maybe because I'm a little fried today, but yeah. If you read as yourself, consider a character to sit behind for your readings. I don't, Eric, not. I've been overloaded for a little while now. I mean, I shouldn't say overloaded. I'm loaded. I have a lot on my plate. So it's been difficult to do that. I would really like for things to sort of level out a bit so that I feel like I can do that. If I do, it's probably going to be fairly limited spots. But yeah. Okay. I hope that helps, John. I feel like I'm not giving as effective as an answer as I would be if I had like a little bit more oomph in me, but it's a lot of it is practice, and feedback helps, and just doing it a lot helps too. This is, I think, my last question. Paper says, I often read for myself and find the cards often tell me what I already know. How can I change or shake that? My favorite way to not always just be seeing the same message over and over again in my cards is to read the guidebook. So if I'm in that kind of a rut, I will work with decks that have good guidebooks. I want to read somebody else's perspective on the card. I don't want to think of my perspective. I want to think of somebody else's perspective on the card. And so working with a tarot deck that has a great guidebook, or that by the way the art is done gives me a different perspective. One of the reasons I actually really love these Tarot of Oneness. Oh, I'm not in my dual view here. One of the reasons I love these is because they actually are a first person perspective in the card, which is very different, right? So for example, in the Nine of Swords, we're the ones in the bed seeing something scary. In the Four of Pentacles, we're a squirrel. We're literally a squirrel. Those are our little squirrel paws, and we're like hoarding our little stash of nuts or whatever. There's a really interesting shift in this deck, and it gets me out of my head a little bit. It offers a different glimpse into the cards. One of the reasons why I like working with a variety of different decks. The guidebook, of course, is also great for Tarot of Oneness, but when I read for myself, I almost always consult the guidebook. Almost always. Unless I'm reading with my own deck, which obviously I've got a whole world and story, and that really helps too. But I find the best thing I can do for myself if I want to get a non-biased reading for myself is I pull a card, I read the guidebook, and I kind of almost read the guidebook, in a bibliomantic way. So I'll pull a card for energy obstacle advice, for example, and then I'll go to the guidebook and I'll read what the author has to say for each card. And as soon as I hit a line in the guidebook entry that feels like it's speaking directly to me, I stop. That's my answer. Does that make sense? So like I might read through and it's like, blah, 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 blah. You might be feeling really stubborn right now and blah, blah, blah. If I'm feeling stubborn and that feels like it hits, I stop. That's what that card's telling me. Does that make sense? So like I'm definitely engaging with it in a way where I am letting the guidebook and that other creator, their perspective, guide my reading. And that helps me get out of my own head. And it also gives me confidence that I'm not just telling myself what I want to hear. I'm using my intuition in that way that I work with the guidebook by stopping as soon as something feels true, feels like it's on point. And so I'm using my own intuition, and I'm kind of getting out of my own way, and I'm not reading in a biased way because I'm reading it through the lens of somebody else as opposed to myself. And I find that really helpful. Yeah. Kirst says, thank you so much for this opportunity because I was self-taught, so I never really had a communication way with another tarot reader. You're welcome. I love doing these. Yeah, Grunewald says, stop when you have the sentence. Reading 5 pages for one sentence is a mental drain. Agree. And some guidebook entries are really long. So like as soon as you get to a point where that's the message, just stop. I really find that effective, and I do that constantly. It's really rare when I read for myself. Again, unless I'm using my own decks, when I'm reading for myself, I am almost always, with very rare exceptions, using the guidebook. And it helps. Sassy Dragons is great for this because the meaning's right on the card. I know what the card's telling me because it says it right on the card. And it gives it so much personality, and it feels more like when you do that, it feels more like you're getting a reading than like you're giving yourself a reading, if that makes sense. You are still using your own intuition. But ideally, when you're getting a tarot reading from another reader, you're also using your own intuition. When I've booked pro readings for myself, let's say I booked a pre-record reading and somebody sent me the video and I'm watching the video. They'll say something and I'll pause and I'll be like, oh, that's really, and I'll make a note. I'll underline it. I'll do something and be like, this is the thing that matters. Every reading you get or give should be interactive. Both people involved in the reading. And again, I'm saying should. Remember, I am not the tarot police. Like you do you. But like every reading that you get or give should involve both people's intuition. And I'll remind my people I read for of this. When I'm doing a pro, and I know it's been a while. I'm sorry, Eric. When I'm doing a pro, I'll definitely remind them. Make sure you're using your own gut. I'll say it in member readings too. Like make sure you're using your own gut as you interpret this, right? Make sure that you're vetting this through what feels right for you. If I say something and it feels wrong, you've got to trust that, because that's, as the person getting the reading, that's really important. Grunewald says, the only question I have for Lisa is how in the world do you recharge after giving us at this depth all the freaking time. First of all, I love this. This feeds my soul. I have been teaching in one form or another for years and years. I taught yoga for a really long time. I love teaching. And I don't see myself as like some uber expert necessarily, sometimes to my own detriment, actually. But I love this. I love the interactivity. I love helping. I love being helpful. It means a lot to me. And that's a really sweet question. And thank you. But as for how I recharge, Peggy takes me to dinner, or we hang out. I play video games. I veg out. But yeah, I find ways. Usually I veg out playing video games. Probably gonna go play some Pal World with Peggy here in a few minutes. We'll probably grab some dinner because it's almost 5, and I've been streaming pretty much nonstop since 9 a.m. today. Well, not 9 a.m., 10 a.m. We started our Badass Unicorn. I do a once a month thing with my highest tier in my membership called Troubleshooting the Tarot, or not. That's this called Tarot Test Drive. And we get into a deck, we kind of figure it out, we build a practice around it. And today we were working with the Voyager Tarot, and it was really cool. But I didn't have a lot of like ideas going in, so it's very workshoppy. We kind of figure it out together, and it's so much fun. But those tend to run long, so I was on there from like 10 to 1, I think, almost exactly. And then Peggy and I went and grabbed some food and coffee. Grabbed some coffee. No, I ate food at home. Then we went and got Starbucks, and then I came back into this. But yeah, it is fun. I love the streams. I love hanging out with people. It feeds my soul. But yeah, I also balance it out with video games and mindless activities as well. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. As a reminder, you can find my work in all the places where you would normally find things. Unicorn's Journey Oracle is not on Etsy yet, but it is coming to Etsy once all my Kickstarter orders have shipped. They haven't arrived yet to my fulfillment center. They're on a boat. Everybody think happy boat thoughts. They're on a boat. They will arrive on the West Coast, I'm assuming in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then from there, it's got a truck to the Midwest where my fulfillment center is. Then they've got to receive them in, it all takes time. But once they all get in, then my Kickstarter orders will start shipping. And once that's done and well on its way, then we'll see where we're at with timing, and I'll figure out when it makes sense to put them in Etsy. But right now, pre-orders for Unicorn's Journey Oracle or late backing is still open. Not for too terribly much longer, but it is still open for right now. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you all so much, and for your energy, and for all of you who contributed in the chat too, because again, this is a collective and it's really fun to share and bounce ideas around with each other. I don't know if there's going to be one of these in October. I don't think so. So we might not be getting together again for one of these until November. We'll see how my schedule goes. But I think Peggy and I needed one of my Saturdays because Peggy and I are going to be at the Witches Flea Market in Port Moody, BC. We'll have a table there. That will be one of my Saturdays. So it did make it a little tight for planning one of these for next month. So probably then I'll try to get back on here for one of these again in November. I will try to clip out a few of the questions. We'll just see how it goes. If I have some time to sit down and do some of that editing work, I will, and I'll pull out some. As always, if you're watching this back and you found a particular question and answer session especially helpful, please let me know in the comments which question and answer was like your favorite. And that might help me prioritize which ones I should clip out and put as separate videos on the channel so they're easy to find later. But again, thank you so much. And everybody have a fabulous, fabulous day. And I'll talk to you later. Until then, may your magic always shine from the inside out.